NFL draft conversation coming up, who had the best drafts and who knocked it out of the park, who didn't do so hot. But, boy, yesterday, as we say, this is what sports is all about. You just don't know, Game 7s, winner take all. Doesn't matter what but the Boston Bruins had done for the course of 6 months of the season, putting up the greatest regular season of all time. The Florida Panthers, I think they were 43 points behind the Bruins for the regular season. 43 points back. I mean, of course, the Celtics with an all-time season, 135, what was it? What did I say? 135 points? Ridiculous. I mean, this is like, but we see this a lot where, remember the New England Patriots couldn't finish off the Super Bowl run when they were 18-0 and had that historic season with Tom Brady and Randy Moss.
That'd be sports right there.
That'd be sports.
The Warriors.
The Warriors.
72 wins.
72-win Warriors couldn't beat the Cavaliers. There was a Seattle Mariners baseball team that won 116 ball games that didn't close it out and didn't even get out of the first round, if memory serves. Didn't even make the World Series that year.
The Bucks this year too.
Yeah, this year for sure. The Bucks with the best record, losing to the Heat, who rolled into New York yesterday, and they look like the team with kind of an it factor. And then there's Steph Curry. Dude, if you were watching that game yesterday, there was just a moment early where I think everybody watching or were there said, "Oh, Steph has that look." Yeah, Steph has that look.
Like he was looking to get like 60 or 70 points.
Jeez Louise. And obviously you now start talking about Steph in the era of, category of all-time greats. He already is, but, man, continuing to build the resume. He's certainly in the conversation of greatest point guard of all time, greatest shooter of all time. I think he already owns that mantle. But, man, the clutch gene that he's always had showed up there. I mean, after when Sacramento took the game in Game 6 in San Francisco, you're thinking, oh, geez, Sacramento might go ahead and steal this thing, because it felt like after winning Game 5, Golden State was in control of the series. But, to cough it up and have Sacramento come in and beat them at home, then have to go back to Sacramento.
Yeah, for Game 7, that was
win
tough.
Another road game. Thought that was going to be tough. And, well, it was Steph Curry saying, okay, no. We're going to move on and play the Lakers. We're going to finish this thing off. And they did that just yesterday. That's what sports is all about, man. Just gets you up out of your seat. You tune in, you don't know. And, as we say, best reality TV there is, because it's not scripted. Unless you're talking NFL like Ty in there with his conspiracy theories. But it's just the best. It's what you tune in for, is to see moments like that, individual performances, stunning upsets. And, break up, as our man CB says from the Great Northwest, release the Kraken.
Oh, my goodness.
The Kraken in their expansion year, their inaugural season, taking out the defending champions in Colorado late last night. So pretty darn cool.
The Bruins are looking for a breeze through, too. And they got, man.
Well, and they were up 3-2 in the third period with about 3 minutes to play, and you're thinking
a minute.
Was it into a minute? Yeah, I mean, they had the thing won, and they were about to move on, and then Florida gets the late goal. They had taken the goalie out of the net to try to put an extra man on the attack, and they're willing to give up another goal because they need a goal to win or keep the game alive, and they got it. And at that moment, I think everybody in Boston just knew. It was like, oh, that's going to sting.
It's going to sting a lot.
That's going to leave a mark, and it certainly did. As that is, I mean, this is what you love sports, and if you're a fan, that season, this team, the Bruins.
That city and that team can take it, though. How many championships?
I just think for the players, and remember we played the Giannis sound last week after the Bucks lost to the Heat, and Jimmy Butler rose up and just had an incredible games to knock him out, and he argued it wasn't a failure. We had a great season, even in defeat, because that's how sports go. But you feel for the players and the organization. For me, more than the fans. I mean, they had such a great season. You put together such a great roster.
That's a failure for the Bruins. Believe me, that's what they're thinking that as.
Yeah, well, this was the year because they don't give regular season championships, right? They don't give regular season banners. I guess you could put one up, but that would be not very good in that spot. But all right, so we'll get back and take your thoughts on all that, the good, the bad, and the ugly from the great weekend. But how about the weather after things turned on Friday night with all the severe weather that rolled through Saturday and Sunday? Saturday was cool with the breeze. Actually, it was a wind. And there were so many outdoor activities going on Saturday. Hopefully you got to get out and enjoy that. But while it was happening, the NFL draft was happening as well. We know that it went Thursday with the Houston Texans making the big bold move of getting picks 2 and 3, quarterback and pass rusher. Cowboys back in the first round, selected the big defensive tackle, Mazi Smith, out of Michigan. But then, of course, the real guts of the draft, Buck, come on Friday and Saturday. Rounds 2 and 3 on Friday night, and then rounds 4 through 7 on Saturday. And how about this? How about Roschon Johnson going to the as a draft pick of the Dallas Cowboys with pick 90? And you told us on Thursday that you had a dream that the Cowboys were going to draft DeMarvion Overshown.
Yes, as a linebacker. He's very tall.
And you
like
had a dream about that.
I did. I actually had a dream that he was playing for the Dallas Cowboys. They were going to pick him.
And they did. First, 90th pick overall. And that was a spot where I thought maybe we'd see Roschon Johnson. And I have to think the Cowboys considered it. But, it was DeMarvion. They were looking for defense. I thought they'd go offense in that spot. Because, talking about weapons for Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
And,
but they needed some insurance for Van Der Esch. He's going to miss 3 games, right? On the minimum with his neck.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Going into the draft, interior defensive line, interior offensive line, weapons, and then, linebacker depth would be, key cogs there and key pieces for the Cowboys. Now, in the second round, the Cowboys took the Michigan tight end Luke Schoonmeyer.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a bit of a reach. I thought he was a guy that most people had 3rd and 4th round grades on. But the Cowboys, as we talked about in the lead up to the draft all along, they were going to take a tight end. I thought they might. And if you go back to the first round on Thursday night, Dalton Kincaid, the kid from Utah, Buffalo traded in front of the Cowboys because they really thought the Cowboys were going to take the Utah tight end right there. And so they jumped ahead of them and took the tight end. The Cowboys then took Mazi Smith out of Michigan, next highest player on their board. But to reach what I think most people had him graded as a 3rd, 4th round player out of Michigan. Cowboys were clearly wanting to get a tight end to help replace the production of Dalton Schultz. And, Schoonmeyer is a good player. I mean, he was a key cog in that Michigan offense.
That dude can run block now.
And he's you can't play for Jim Harbaugh if you're not going to block and be physical.
Right.
But, they took him when Darnell Washington out of Georgia was still on the board. He was taken by the who took Washington? Pittsburgh later in that round. Felt like the Cowboys could have gotten better value there because there was a run on tight ends. We talked about this. There being, 4 to 5, maybe 6 top 100 type tight ends in this draft, and all 6 went. Cowboys chose their guy, the guy out of Michigan, instead of the Georgia tight end. But that'll be forever discussed. And if Washington goes on to be whoever, but little reach. But then to get DeMarvion Overshown at pick 90. I think is a good pick.
I just
for the
think he's perfect for them because now you got a guy that can play inside and out again. And with Quinn, he's liable to be an outside rusher at times too. I mean, he can put some pressure on you. I mean, he's. I'm not going to say he's going to have to learn how to hit like Van Der Esch because Van Der Esch will stick his face in there. He now has that instinct for the ball now after a couple of years in the league, and I think Overshown will be that guy. And be faster, actually.
Well, he's very versatile, like you said. I mean, with a team that already has Micah Parsons.
Right.
I'm not saying he is Micah Parsons, but say you can do a lot of the same.
Sure.
Yeah, position versatility.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's time when Parsons is really very good inside.
Yeah, he is. But he wreaks the most havoc coming off the edge
absolutely.
or as a pass rusher. If Micah can be freed up and DeMarvion. And I think you're right that he's kind of a nice complement or, sub in for Leighton Van Der Esch early in his career. Remember, Van Der Esch only signed the 1-year deal and coming back with the Cowboys, essentially a 1-year deal. But, we know what DeMarvion is, right? He was a big safety out of Arp, Texas, tiny little East Texas. There are stories when he was playing in high school that they had to be careful. I mean, he was just such a physical player, and he was so much bigger and faster than everybody at the level of football he was playing. Heat-seeking, he just is rolling in and knocking people out. Well, he comes to Texas, and he's a safety, but a big safety, big long-arm safety, and, that was in the Tom Herman recruiting classes. They move him to linebacker, and, when Steve Sarkisian gets here, and I thought this year, when in his, second year playing the linebacker positions, when we saw the light bulb go on a little bit for DeMarvion, where he was thinking less and just reacting more.
Or in this defense, he can just go.
Well, and listen to this. So when the Cowboys took him at 90, Louis Riddick, who is one of the lead draft analysts for ESPN. Listen to his assessment of the Cowboys' pick of Agent Zero to the Dallas Cowboys.
DeMarvion Overshown, a converted safety, Lewis, and you see it when you watch him on tape.
Listen, I get excited talking about this dude, all right? 6'2", 230, 4.56. Look, I talked to Steve Sarkisian about DeMarvion Overshown. He is a freaking heat-seeking missile. period. Every hit is like that. Every single one. And he has really, really taken to the key and diagnose part of the game, both in terms of his run fits and his pass fits. He knows exactly how to pattern match. It's getting better and better. He's a guy who has good hands. He can stay on his feet, take on blocks. It's the hits, though. It's the impact hits. And he is a hell of a special teams player. Dallas has got them one right here. And he's not too far away, right down the street in Austin. You're going to go right up now, going up there to Frisco. This kid right here is one of the most unsung, I believe, sleepers in this draft. I know it's a third round. It's not that much of a sleeper. But the Marvion Overshown is the real deal. Him and Micah Parsons together, ooh, boy. That's going to be fun to watch.
Feels like a good fit.
All right, there you go. Louis Riddick obviously likes the pick of Demo to the Cowboys at 90. We'll get you. Wait till you hear what the lead scout who encouraged the Chicago Bears to draft Roschon Johnson early in the 4th round had to say about Rojo and the type of player they're getting. Also get to Ora Ojimo and Keandre Coburn drafted on Saturday. In all, Buck, 30 players out of the state of Texas were drafted. The Big 12 had a good weekend for sure. And congratulations to O'Shawn Mathis out of Manor High, of course, to Nebraska and TCU along the way. He was drafted pick 189. And then Elijah Higgins out of Bowie High School was drafted pick 197. And, TCU had 7 players drafted. If you count the preferred free agents, 2 of them for the Longhorns, Anthony Cook and Deshaun Jameson. Longhorns had 7 guys either drafted or into the pros. TCU had 7 players drafted in all, I believe was the total number, as they had a bunch of guys taken. And the Houston Texans in the 4th round took their edge rusher Dylan Horton, kid out of Frisco, Texas. He led the Big 12 in sacks this year with 11.5. They're bringing him into that new look D'Amico Ryans defense. That was their 4th round pick. That was the pick right ahead of Roschon Johnson. He went 109, and then Roschon went 115 to the Chicago Bears. So we'll run through it. Got some interesting subplots developing coming out of the draft. How about 3 of the top 4 quarterbacks? All the quarterbacks not named Bryce Youngbuck drafted into the AFC South. Right, the Texans took C.J. Stroud. Will Levis ended up in Tennessee when they traded up for him on day 2. And then, of course, Anthony Richardson to the Indianapolis Colts. So all the debate about who you should take, they're going to play one another every season twice in the AFC South, along with, of course, Trevor Lawrence as the top quarterback in that division. So we'll get to the other subplots. The Eagles knocked it out of the park.
Oh, they crushed it. Or the Bulldogs.
Yeah, they're
Philadelphia Bulldogs now.
Philadelphia, yeah. What did my brother send me that they're calling them? Because they drafted over the last 2 years, the Philadelphia Eagles have drafted the guts of the Georgia defense. That one of the best defenses built in the last 20 years in college football. They've drafted a bunch of dudes off of that, and trying to find this. They already got T-shirts they're making up there in Philadelphia, Buck. They didn't take Bijan Robinson, but it's Georgia Bird Dogs. Georgia Bird Dogs is what they're calling them. So we'll run through the Eagles. The Steelers had a great draft as well. Seattle had a great draft.
Texans had a great draft.
Thought the Texans addressed a lot of needs, including quarterback, and we'll get into all of it. The conversations coming out of it, the storylines through it, and, of course, what a day it was yesterday. The good, the bad, and the ugly on the first day of May here on B&E. Callahan's General Store, still there after all these years, 45 years right there between downtown and the airport. And, Callahan's General Store, and it's family-owned and locally operated. But, look, it's everything. It's everything you need. I always say it's like a family-owned big box store without the lumber, right? They have everything else you're going to need when you get in there. If you need some Western wear for the lease, the ranch, hats and great blue jeans, even some stylish stuff that you got to have. They've got that in the back corner. They got the hardware section with everything you need for tools and equipment that you got to have. The houseware section is really cool for indoor and outdoor, cool stuff for your house and your yard. And then they've got the yard section, the garden section as they call it. It is phenomenal. It's huge, especially if you count into the back warehouse area. They've got everything you need to get your yard golf course ready. They're powering our Texas tour of golf courses and at Callahan's, and they can get your yard looking and your plants and everything you need looking great for the season. Of course, it's the first day of May, and as Bucky always says, the April showers are going to bring the May flowers. Get all your flowers, all your essentials there. And I always tell you, it's about the people at Callahan's. They know everything about all the products that you're asking about and how to do it and how to apply it properly and what's going to work for your yard and your project. It's right there at Callahan's General Store. Start online at Callahan's General Store, then find them at 501 Bastrop Highway between downtown and the airport. It's always a good day to make it a Callahan's Day.
Whiskey River, take my mind.
It's
Don't
Bucky
let
and
her
Erin.
memory torture me.
Oh, man, happy birthday to Willie Nelson over the weekend. Saturday, he turned 90.
They had quite a party, didn't they?
They had a huge concert and birthday party out at the Hollywood Bowl in Hollywood, California. What a scene that was. And, 90 years old. You know what's cool about, well, everything's cool about Willie Nelson. But his name's just Willie. It's not short for William or Willard or
Willie.
He's just Willie Nelson. Not a nickname. It says he's Willie. 90 years ago Saturday, they said, you know what, he really looks like a Willie. We're going with Willie Nelson out of Abbott, Texas. Happy birthday, Willie. We'll play some Willie tracks throughout the course of the morning. Early returns from the NFL draft. Bijan Robinson is already the odds favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, according to the odds makers in Vegas. And why the heck not? He's going to be with the Falcons as the 8th pick. And by the way, that pick in Austin, everybody was excited about it, and then Longhorn Nation, because it got into a good spot and kept him away from the Philadelphia Eagles, who were going to pick 2 picks later, and a lot of fears. And by the way, the Eagles, in addition to all the defensive draft picks they made, they also acquired DeAndre Swift from the Detroit Lions, kind of pivoting away. They didn't get Bijan, so they go get the running back from the Detroit Lions. Because remember, the Lions drafted Jahmyr Gibbs,
who was in shock. Like, he couldn't believe he got drafted.
with the 12th pick.
He was like, huh?
Yeah, Detroit, when the draft grades come out, Detroit's going to get a lot of, poor marks because of positional value, right? They took a running back and a linebacker in the top 20 picks, but, they obviously have a plan. They believe they can win now. They can win that division now, so they were trying to draft immediate impact players, regardless of positional value. They weren't playing the long game in Detroit. No. They were playing, we need guys that can come in and play for this team right now at key positions, and we'll see if that pans out. They needed a starting linebacker, like the kid out of Iowa that they brought in at 18, and they needed Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, they had plans on moving on from DeAndre Swift, and they did to the Eagles. Unfortunately for Cowboys fans, the Eagles continue to load up. How about that backfield with Swift and now Jalen Hurts to go with all the defensive players they drafted? We'll run through the list of them, but gosh, to get Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and Keely Ringo, just a really great haul for the Philadelphia Eagles. But the Lions are interesting. The Texans were interesting, too, because that also is going to get panned by a lot of people because of the amount that the Texans gave up to go up to 3 to take Will Anderson. But listening to DeMeco Ryans over the weekend, Buck, they plan to use Will Anderson like the Cowboys used Micah Parsons. We were just talking about that with the Agent Zero pick. They want Will Anderson all over the field wreaking havoc. And if you're a Texans fan and you say if he can have close to the impact Micah Parsons has had on the Cowboys defense, and Will is that kind of quick twitch player.
Because he was all over the place for Alabama. He really was.
Yeah. And, he's got speed, he's got the quick twitch, he's got the strong hands, he can play the run. Kind of like Micah. Now, I don't think he's, can he play with that bulldog mentality, the relentlessness? Nick Saban would tell you he will, because that's the type of player he is. He is the alpha's alpha.
Well, they'll put him in a position where where running backs have to block him in the middle and he twists and stuff like that. I just don't know if he could hold up, play in, play out against, a bigger tight end or a tackle-y. But he can go inside, and your running back is stuck there, and he's got to go one-on-one like Micah Parsons, those running backs. He'll run right through those dudes.
Yeah, which we see Micah do, all right? And he's 260 pounds or 255. He's going to probably play about that weight with the suddenness and the quick twitch, and they want to use him a lot like Micah Parsons. We're talking about comps for Will Anderson last week on Friday, and that's one. Von Miller is another. That's how they want to see him. And look, if he's close to Micah Parsons or Von Miller, you give up what you gave up to go get him because he becomes the centerpiece of your defense.
What they did at 2 and 3 was incredible. That was great.
Well, and the other part of this is this: if they have one of the top 5 picks next year, because again they're not a good team, then that's a strong argument that was too much because they gave up their own first-round pick. They swapped first-round picks on Thursday night. They swapped 2 and 3 and 12. So you could say they gave up a first-round pick there, but they added the 3rd pick. Then they give up 33. And then to give up next year's first. I'm sure they offered Cleveland's first, but that'll be the thing. If Houston can be a middle-of-the-road 7, 8, 9 win team next year, which they won 4 this past year, 3 this past year, can they get to 6 or 7 wins and stay out of the top 5? They're trying to build something. Obviously, C.J. Stroud, who likely will start soon for them, becomes the biggest question. As for the Cowboys, Buck, in addition to taking DeMarvion Overshown at pick 90, this was pretty awesome too. We talked about it last week. I think everybody had the thought, well, Chris Vaughn is the Cowboys' assistant director of scouting and, high up in their scouting department with the Dallas Cowboys.
And he actually stayed out of all the conversation about his son.
Yeah, he offered to do that, and they look, well, we're talking about your kid. We don't want you in here. You have your own opinions. We're going to give you our unbiased opinions. But in the 5th round, the Dallas Cowboys were on the clock. And how about this phone call Dad got to make to his son?
Hey, buddy.
How's it going?
Hey, it's going good. This is Dad. My phone wasn't working. Look at here, man. You want to come to work with me next week?
I wouldn't mind that at all.
Watch here. and just went with what he knows in terms is going to be a great football player. Oh, yeah. There's his dad.
Would you like to come to work with me next week? That's great.
That is awesome. So Deuce Vaughn was a sentimental pick, but was it a good pick? Is that a good pick for the Dallas Cowboys?
5th round, yes.
Ty, you like it?
Yeah. I mean, the 7th round.
Was it 7th round?
Yeah.
Was it a 7th round pick? Even better, yes. That's a nice 7th round pick.
And the Cowboys had multiple picks in the back end there.
Okay.
And
yes.
gobble him up. And look, he's overachieved everywhere. He was overlooked coming out of Cedar Ridge here in Austin and Round Rock, and wasn't recruited by the hometown team here and went off to K-State. I still remember back in the day when Deuce Vaughn was playing at Cedar Ridge, Adam Wagner, Wags, was our producer. And he was doing the high school games for Cedar Ridge, and he would come in telling us about, man, you got to see this little dude. He's unbelievable. Why isn't Texas recruiting him? And he used to say it on the air quite a bit. And they're like, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of guys that Tom Herman's staff didn't recruit, that went on to be really, really good players. And he went to K-State and was unbelievable. I mean, the only knock is he's 5'5", but he's always played bigger than his size.
Oh, for sure.
He's elusive as heck. He was a hell of a soccer player growing up. He's got great feet and balance, and he makes it hard to tackle him. And I mean, how many times you see it at K-State, Buck, where he would just get lost behind the big dudes, and the defensive players couldn't find him. Like, where is he? And then, boom, he'd shoot out.
They're
going
to use him as a runner,
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you use.
They
him.
already have the special teams All-Pro, right? Don't they? They have an All-Pro special teams player.
They do. Cavante Turpin.
Right.
Out of TCU, but Deuce can threaten for that. But at the same time, you got Tony Pollard as running back, Malik Davis as a running back, and
Ronald Jones.
Dude, you keep bringing up that old dude.
Yeah, Ronald Jones was signed, but we'll see. Deuce, we'll see what type of impact he can have. Look, I don't say gadget player, but he's a player that can change a game.
Oh, for sure.
In a heartbeat. And
I mean, you see dudes like Brandon Boston, or what's his name? The Brandon Scott, the guy in Philly. He's like
Boston
Scott. And Darren Sproles. It's doable.
It is, and it can thrive. And he's so much stronger than people give him credit for. I mean, he's really a pretty powerful kid for his size. It's just about the height. He's only 5'5". So, but a lot of times, as we say, that can be a strength for him.
Well, no, he works that to his advantage.
I mean, those big 6'6" linemen stand up to block, and where is he? And then all of a sudden, he's out the chute and out the gate. He did that so often.
No, he's everything you want except for his size.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the balance. He's got the quickness. He's got speed.
Do you
he can catch the ball.
Do you think if he's 5'9", he goes in the first 3 rounds?
Possibly. Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah. It's
for
just
sure.
a height with him.
Yeah, and then durability, but he doesn't get hit that often. How many times have you seen Deuce Vaughn get hit? Really hard.
I don't recall Deuce Vaughn missing a bunch of games because he's got a bad knee or something like that. Nobody's getting real good hits on him.
Been very durable, for sure. Deuce was 6th round, a couple people have pointed out. So
my bad.
It says Tom Herman got Bijan Robinson. Yeah, well, you can still recruit the local kid who's a good player. But, yeah, Bijan was a pretty good pick. Pretty good pickup for Stan Drayton. And, good on Stan Drayton because Bijan, by all accounts, was headed to Ohio State, and Stan made that phone call and said, you need to be here. I don't think he went to your deal. I said, I had a dream that you were playing for the University of Texas, like DeMarvion was playing for the Dallas Cowboys.
Just a weird dream.
But
too many similarities to the guy that they have, thinking that, they decided to bring him back. Why wouldn't you bring a guy who's just like him? You got to have an insurance policy because that Van Der Esch is going to be out. His neck or his neck or his shoulder.
He might only miss like 1 game last year.
Missed 2.
He's been pretty healthy relative to what he has.
But they like what he does.
Career.
They like that type of player in that defense.
They got a young linebacking core now with Damone Clark at LSU last year, who was still kind of recovering from that spinal injury he had at LSU.
And one thing Overshown did last year is he gets in the lanes for the passes with his long arms now. Well, kind of understands that a little bit.
Yeah, I thought Louis Riddick's comments were spot on. He is a striker. I mean, he likes to hit people, and he's going to intimidate some folks, especially wide receivers in coverage, and that's the position versatility, the positionless football concept of Dan Quinn. He fits right into that because he's big enough at 230 and long arms to cover tight ends, In
No, the best
coverage.
part of his football is to come, I believe.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, he's just learning that position.
Yeah.
And you have to remember this, and I've talked to my buddy Mike Craven from the Eyes on Texas podcast that we do in the Dave Campbell's Texas Football. He remembers watching and going to see DeMarvion Overshown play because when Mike was he was working for the Austin American Statesman at the time doing their Fab 55 list, and he went to see him and play at ARP, and he was like scared for the other team. I mean, he was just so
as a
much
safety,
bigger.
yeah.
And they almost had to tone him down. I mean, little old East Texas ARP, and this big old dude was flying around knocking people out.
And Big 12 meetings last year, he was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
He had gotten so big.
Yeah, well, then he gets here, and they moved him to linebacker, so I think he was a chicken with his head cut off for a couple of years here trying to learn that position. I agree with you. I think he and Moro Ojimo, and maybe even Roshan Johnson, I mean, their best football arguably is to come because, as we know, Moro came to Texas as a 16-year-old and kind of had to develop into his body and get strong enough to deal with grown men. Now he's 21, and he's going to the Philadelphia Eagles, unfortunately. And, they really like his position versatility. Roshan Johnson moved from quarterback to running back and never was the feature back here at Texas. When we come back, we'll jump into the coach's corner coming up in our next hour, and I'll let you know that the scout who was the lead scout on Roshan Johnson, effusive about his thoughts on getting Rojo to the Chicago Bears. They didn't think he'd be there all the way into the fourth round. They were thrilled when he did, and they think he's going to be a foundational piece, really, to their offense here moving forward with Justin Fields. We'll hear that, or I'll read that to you coming up. Also, some B&E facts of the day as we're recapping the good, the bad, and the ugly. It is May, folks. It's the first day of May. A lot of things coming here this month, including the Mullet Open coming Friday.
It's Bucky and Erin.
Yeah, flip that calendar to May. First day of the 5th month is here. A lot to look forward to.
We got to be having a rot rally here soon then, if it's May.
Man. May will be.
Cycles will be coming into town.
You know, today is May Day, and then there's Star Wars Day on the 4th. May the 4th be with you.
That's right. All the
Cinco de
geeks come
Mayo
out.
on Friday, which includes the mullet
Cinco
open.
de mullet.
You got the mini mullet on Thursday, which
Yes,
is
sir.
exciting. The little version of the mullet open, and then the mullet open itself on Friday. We'll be out there live in Bastrop Friday morning. Also on Saturday, it's the Run for the Roses, the Kentucky Derby. Ty's wearing the Confidence Game hat today. If you're watching on,
I'll be out of that hotel so
Twitch.
quick on Saturday morning.
I was supposed to meet up with Kurt Godby on Saturday, but I called the Colonel walking into the Craig Flowers walking into the stadium on Saturday, and then after the first inning, I went to go get a beer and a hot dog and dropped my phone and destroyed it.
No.
So I got home and
you were incommunicado.
Yeah, and Craig and Kurt had texted and called me like 15
now,
times.
Remember, this week
them.
for them, they're owners now. They're big timers now, so be careful now.
I felt
Godby's the leader of that.
Yeah.
Don't tell my wife.
Look out for Colonel, too. They're all big timers this week now.
We're going to check in with Kurt Godby tomorrow from Churchill Downs, where they're going to get post positions today. Post positions at the Run for the Roses.
They have a horse in the Derby. You know, when we go to these little pony things, these little pony rides, they're big timers this week.
I'm wearing
now.
this hat all week. I saw a gas. They must have given one of these hats to. I went to a 7-Eleven in Fort Worth this weekend. I was wearing this hat, and the gas station attendant was wearing a Confidence Game hat.
Confidence Game is the horse to watch for at least for us.
I think it's still going up at 29-1.
He's been having some good workouts,
yes,
too,
he has.
and we'll talk to Kurt about that coming up tomorrow. The coronation of King Charles, of course, is also on Saturday, if you're into that kind of thing.
Who's playing the concert? Did they find someone?
Katy Perry.
Snoop Dogg. I know Snoop Dogg said he'd do it.
No, there's a bunch. There's several. Katy Perry, I think, is one of the bigger ones, but that'll be Saturday. They've also got Mother's Day is coming up in a couple of weeks. So a lot to look forward to in the month of May. We certainly had a lot to watch over the weekend. The Bruins and Bucks, best records in their respective sports for the regular season, both lost in round one. It's only the second time that's happened in the four major sports. It was 2012, where the Vancouver Canucks and the Chicago Bulls had the best record in their league and didn't get out of the first round. As we talked about with the Boston Bruins, they had the best record of all time in the regular season and didn't get out of the first round.
Was that the year Derrick Rose tore his ACL?
Yes, I believe so. 2012, so 11 years ago it happened. But, man, the Bucks with Giannis and then the Bruins, that was just demoralizing. Up 3-2 with under a minute to play to move on, and they give up the equalizer and then lose in overtime. An absolute crush of a situation. Hey, did you know, Buck, that Bijan Robinson, the first team he was ever on when he was 8 years old, were the Falcons? There you go.
Right,
Falcons.
Pop Warner football?
Yeah, it was his first team on a B&E fact of the day. That is true.
I was on the Bethlehem Raiders that wore Minnesota Viking colors. That was weird. That's when I became a Viking fan. Just the weirdest thing.
I love it. And that's where you became a Viking fan. So, yeah, well, Bijan, now he's like, yeah, I always grew up liking the Falcons because that was my first team. He was getting after it, which is pretty cool. Also, Bijan Robinson, as we said, is now the odds favorite to be the NFL's Rookie of the Year. As far as the quarterbacks go, we know that Bryce Young will be the starter in Carolina, Buck. Baker Mayfield, another former number one overall pick, will be his main competition there. Anthony Richardson, according to the owner, Jim Irsay, is likely to start the first game of the year because he's the owner, right? So he's also the coach.
Yeah, of course he is. He pays the checks. Yes.
Anthony Richardson starting the first week of the regular season is reportedly a real possibility, according to the owner. Meanwhile, in the same division, because all the top quarterbacks ended up in the same division outside of Bryce Young, Will Levis was drafted by the Tennessee Titans, and their head coach Mike Vrabel said recently over the weekend that Ryan Tannehill is still the starter. Malik Willis is QB2. Will Levis will enter as QB3. But he said he'll be given the opportunity to prove himself as an equal when he's putting mayonnaise in his coffee.
He'll beat out those two bums.
Yeah, well, Ryan Tannehill's still their guy. And that's what, to me, the general manager drafts the players, and Mike Vrabel says what he just said. Oh, no. We've got a quarterback, and we've got a quarterback, too, we drafted last year.
Vrabel didn't go Deion and say, hey, you're out. These other two bums are out.
But he also didn't go Jim Irsay and say, oh, you could probably start. Well, the coach will decide that. And obviously the owner has influence, which is it should, but you got to go earn that spot. And there's dudes. Ryan Tannehill's been playing there a long time, and Malik Willis got a cup of coffee last year, trying to get his feet wet. He seems like he has a long way to go, but Will Levis hasn't proven anything yet, and he will try to do so. Also, from the facts of the day, how about Max Duggan, Max Duggan.
TCU's got a lot of guys.
TCU quarterback
man.
drafted in the 7th round by the LA Chargers.
The Chargers should
You told me the running back went to New Orleans, huh?
Yeah, Kendre Miller. Miller.
It's a good pick for them.
Mr. Irrelevant. Remember last year it was Brock Purdy, who turned out to be very relevant for the San Francisco 49ers. The Los Angeles Rams selected Toledo defensive lineman DeJuan Johnson. Mr. Irrelevant.
I'm going to venture to say he will remain irrelevant this season.
Probably so. Also on the fact of the day, team set an NFL record, 43 trades during the draft. That's a new league record. And the NFL now says it eyes May 11th. May 11th. We're talking about what to look forward to in the month of May. May 11th, schedule release night in the NFL. That's the next big goalpost. Schedule release. How many Aaron Rodgers Jets primetime games will there be?
I hope there's no Denver Bronco primetime games.
God, how many Bronco games did we get in primetime last year that were just awful?
They got theirs last year.
Well, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers quite a bit, you have to imagine, with Tom Brady out of the league. But we'll wait for that in a couple of weeks. We're coming back, just getting warmed up. We're 1 hour into 4 on a Good, Bad, and Ugly Monday on B&E. It's a May Day Monday. That's right. Lots to recap. Good, bad, and ugly from a great weekend after the severe weather of Friday night, which was pretty good haymakers, pretty good storm. Boy, cleaned things out. What a weekend we had. Cool and breezy on Saturday. Warmer yesterday. Temperatures into the 90s, but really, really nice to be outside. Hope you got to do that. There were a lot of outdoor activities going on throughout the great state and out around Central Texas. Wherever you were, you get outside and enjoy that this weekend. Also, recapping a busy weekend on the fields and courts of play. Yesterday's what really the weekend or what sports for me are all about, and I think for a lot of us, the uncertainty, the unknown, Game 7s, draft picks when you're not sure, waiting for that next pick and whose life will be changed, and we saw that over and over again with the NFL draft for 7 rounds, and then 3 Game 7s yesterday. A lot of good stuff on the sports landscape to recap for you. Also, the other stories of the day and the weekend. Get into our Coaches Corner coming up. We'll get into the Longhorns drafted, 5 of them in total, including, of course, Bijan Robinson, number 8 overall. Then DeMarvion Overshown was picked on Friday night to the Dallas Cowboys, which excited a lot of Longhorn fans who also root for that team. And then 3 more on Saturday, and we'll recap all of them.
Excited me because dreams can come true. Remember that.
Dreams can come true.
Dreams can come true.
For,
as weird as they are.
As weird as they are.
That's pretty weird.
But on the good, bad, and ugly Monday, which is how we do it, we always encourage you to hit us with the good from the weekend for you, the bad and the ugly for your favorite team. Our man CB has sent a tweet that says, the ugly. Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher is the topic of his ugly. He says, in 5 years at A&M, this is a Stuart Mandel tweet that he forwarded to us. In 5 years at A&M, Jimbo Fisher has had 2 players selected in the first or second round. During Kevin Sumlin's last 5 years, including the draft after was let go, A&M produced 6 first-rounders and 2 second-rounders. So not just on the field, Jimbo Fisher not getting it done, also developing players to the NFL and the next level. Not at a high level. Not at a high level. That's what the Longhorns hope they're flipping right now with Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns. No players drafted a year ago. 5 this year, 2 signed as preferred free agents right after the draft, and most already expecting that number to continue to grow into next year's draft. Those way too early mock drafts are out, and you see guys like Keandre Coburn. You see guys like Jatavion Sanders, who would be draft eligible at tight end. You see Xavier Worthy. You see Quinn Ewers' name. I got to tell you, Buck, when Kelvin Banks is draft eligible, if he stays healthy and on this track, who knows how high of a pick he will be.
It's true.
You realize Kelvin Banks is a true freshman, and this is now fact, went up against 4 first-round draft pick defensive ends and pass rushers, 4, who all were drafted in the first 31 picks, including Will Anderson, who went 2 overall. Tyree Wilson, Texas Tech, went 7 overall. Will McDonald of Iowa State went 15th overall. And then the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, Felix Anyuduke Ozama, was picked by the Kansas City Chiefs with the 31st pick. As a freshman, against all 4 of those players, Kelvin Banks allowed 0 sacks.
Yes.
Not 1. Now, Kelvin needs to work on his run blocking a little bit. That can get better, but his pass pro is already very high level. I mean, to go against all 4 of those guys and not give up a single sack. And if you go back to the Iowa State game, and the K-State game, those 2 guys were not even a factor in the ballgame. I mean, Will Anderson made some plays against Texas. He also jumped offside.
The kid from TCU didn't do anything either.
I don't think, and Dylan Horton, who the Texans took him in the 4th round, right before Roschon Johnson was picked, which I like. He was the sack leader in the Big 12 this year, Dylan Horton at TCU. Yeah, he didn't, I don't remember him doing too much against the Longhorns and Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks is an equalizer, man. That guy... That's impressive to put on your resume that as an 18-year-old, you stoned those guys for the most part, and they all went in the first 31 picks of the NFL draft
Just
in
keep
April.
progressing.
Just keep getting better. And that's the exciting part for Longhorn fans because you're starting to see that development, right? I don't think last year at this time we'd have thought DeMarvion Overshown would be a top 90 pick into the NFL draft. He was. Keandre Coburn and Moro Ojomo were probably not even on draft boards as of this time last year.
They were free agents.
And they both got drafted. So that's the development you want to see at all positions, and if it continues on top of the acquisition of talent that they've been able to show, look out. Longhorns can be back into that cycle of the good times, but still got to continue to get better. Let's get to the other headlines of the morning, including the Longhorn baseball team with a great win yesterday to win the series at TCU. UBEO Business Services brings it to you. Start with Texas baseball, and what a finish to the series clinching win over the TCU Horned Frogs yesterday, 3-2 in Fort Worth. Longhorns took game 1 on Saturday night, 8-4 behind Lucas Gordon, and they were clinging to a 1-run lead in the ninth yesterday, 3-2, and TCU put runners on the corners with only 1 out. But Texas reliever David Shaw coached a game-ending double play the hard way when the TCU transfer Porter Brown caught a shallow fly in left field and threw out the tagging runner from third at the plate for a game-ending double play. Longhorns improved to 30-15 on the year, 10-7 in Big 12 conference play. They go for the sweep today with Tanner Witt scheduled to make his return from Tommy John surgery today. David Pierce told us in our conversation with him last Thursday that Tanner will get the first inning, most likely. He will be on a pitch count, but what a jolt that can be for the ball club. Game set for 1 o'clock today. You can hear it on 101.9 and AM 1260, also streaming on the Horn app. As we told you, Texas football saw now 5 former Longhorns drafted in the NFL over the weekend. A year ago, they saw 0 players drafted. We'll run down who and where coming up in our Coach's Corner. Sunday, what a national scene day it was in sports. They had 3 Game 7s, 2 in the NHL, 1 in the NBA. And the NBA game featured an all-time historic performance in a Game 7. Steph Curry poured in 50 points to lead Golden State to a 120-110 closeout win in Sacramento. Highest individual point total in a Game 7 in league history. It advances the Warriors into the second round where they will face face the Lakers. The other Western Conference semifinal is already underway. Top-seeded Denver rolled past Phoenix in Game 1 of that series on Saturday night. Also yesterday, after knocking out the top-seeded Milwaukee Bucks in round 1, the 8th-seeded Miami Heat rolled into New York and took down the Knicks in Game 1 of that Eastern Conference semifinal series, 108-101. Jimmy Butler, of course, led the way with 25. Game 1 in the other semi in the East is set for tonight. Boston hosting Philadelphia. Pair of Game 7s in the NHL. An all-time stunner in Boston last night. Bruins, who posted the greatest regular season the league's ever seen. 65-12-5, 135 points. Well, they're out, as the Florida Panthers scored a goal late in regulation to tie it and then a goal in overtime to win it 4-3, and they take the series 4-3. An upset in Colorado last night as well. That's where the Seattle Kraken became the first expansion team to beat the reigning Stanley Cup champs in their inaugural playoff series. They took down the Avalanche 2-1. Major League Baseball, what a weekend for the Texas Rangers. They, after dropping the first game of their 4-game series with the Yankees on Thursday, Texas proceeded to win the next 3, including a 15-2 romp yesterday. Not all good news for Texas, though. Club yesterday placed their oft-injured ace, Jacob deGrom, on the injured list with what they're calling right forearm tightness. Down in Houston, meanwhile, Astros avoided a 3-game sweep in their World Series rematch with the Phillies. They beat them 4-3 last night. Not good news there, too, though, as Astros starter Jose Urquidy exited that game in the 6th inning because of shoulder soreness. All right, so busy weekend. Austin FC played to a 2-2 draw on Saturday night. Their winless match streak continued.
They're pretty terrible right now.
They broke that what was it, scoreless goal streak. They did break that with 2 goals on Saturday night. But, yeah,
then they struggled on defense. Yeah,
they're not a very good team right now. You're right about that, which is surprising coming off the year that they had a year ago, playing into the Final Four. But they finally got some goals on the board, but they gave up 2. And after the game, Josh Wolf called them sloppy goals that they gave up. They went nearly 400 minutes without a goal, and they finally got one. Emiliano Rigoni's goal was the first in the 40th minute, but he also had a breakaway goal that should have been an easy goal, and he just a disaster for the Austin FC. They are struggling, as Joe Namath would say. Round Rock also playing good baseball, by the way. They crushed Albuquerque yesterday, 13-8. So they're playing really good baseball out at Del Diamond. So what a weekend it was. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Bucky had a dream that Marvion Overshown would be a Cowboy, and the dream came true, my friend. But you also set your alarm for 2:30 this morning. So.
Yeah, so that dream is – I'm still doing that right now as we speak, still dreaming.
Oh, man. That hour of sleep, you can never get that back. You know what I'm saying?
No, plus when you then try to lay back in bed with your clothes on, it just doesn't work. You spend all that whole time looking at the clock wondering if you're going to be late.
Should I get back down to no clothes?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Come on, do I? Don't. Nah, just lay right here. You'll be fine. You'll get a good hour in there. No, you won't.
I'm trying to take you back to last night when you set your alarm. What was in your head when you put it you probably didn't see it clearly, right?
No, I did not. And of course, I looked over and then I looked at my clock. I'm like, come on, dude. Now you're all dressed. What are you going to do? You're going to go back to bed.
Yeah, that's a shame. That's how you start your week. That's not how you want to start a Monday.
Not
Mondays
this,
are
not
Mondays
this week,
anyhow.
And not this week.
Yeah, you got the mullet open and the mini mullet open we've got coming up this week, which is exciting, and we look forward to seeing everybody out
there. I'm excited because, for Thursday and Friday. And, of course, our top chefs coming in there.
Well, Travis Tyndall from Hayes
yeah.
City Store.
Yeah.
He's a great partner
Thursday.
and friend. He'll be making the burgers on Thursday, and those are some damn good burgers.
Mm-hmm.
Be out there just to have a burger.
Lunch by Golden Chick.
Also, lunch at Golden Chick. And
look at Ty and his eyeballs.
Bringing the rolls?
Bringing the rolls, yeah. Bringing the rolls.
Ty eats 12 of those at a sitting.
That's not right.
It's disgusting. But then on Friday night, the coup de grace is Wayne Miller.
Wayne is all excited.
Louis Miller Barbecue in Taylor, Texas, the iconic Louis Miller Barbecue. He'll be cooking it up for Friday after the round of golf at Lost Pines Resort. Let's dive into your Coach's Corner here on this Monday morning to get you launched. It's brought to you by Audio Visual Consultations.
And I thank Tom for his 85-incher.
Ooh.
And his 55-incher.
Here we go.
For Thursday and Friday.
The giveaways.
Yes.
Giveaways. Also for Tom McKay for giving us the great hockey picks. Did he pick? I think he missed the Boston Bruins.
All right. I think everybody missed that.
God, that's a crusher, man. Have that kind of season.
I bet he's happy, though, because his daughter left the Star. Like, she was a Stars fan, then moved to Boston and decided to be a Bruins
fan. Well, we'll put
fan.
this out there, and maybe we'll do a Twitter poll because Twitter polls are fun. What is the greatest team never to win it that didn't win a championship in team sports? Who is that didn't win the championship? What is it? For me, it's going to be the New England Patriots. What was the year? They run together, but when they were 18-0 and Tom Brady and Randy Moss and the greatest one of the Tom Brady. That was the year where Tom Brady threw 50 touchdowns and like 8 interceptions. It was ridiculous.
Mine's is always the Minnesota Vikings. Period.
They're not going to win that poll. The Minnesota Vikings. Well, you know what though? The year where your guy missed the kick, Gary Anderson.
Oh, come on!
And that team, the Minnesota
was that the
Vikings.
Brett Favre hang out with us year? No, it was the year before.
No.
No, that was before.
That was 2008. Or 2000 and
they were
1998.
Right?
1998 is what that was. Why am I thinking 2000? 1998 Minnesota Vikings is a good one because they were unbelievable, right? They were like 15-1.
Right.
And they got to the postseason. And had they won that game, if they had gotten to the Super Bowl, they would have played the Denver Broncos, who were also like a 2-loss team, and they were going for back-to-back with John Elway. Would have set up one of the greatest seasons or Super Bowls maybe ever, with two teams that were 1- and 2-loss teams, but
my
they
guy
couldn't
missed
make
a
the
can
kick.
of corn.
Yeah,
wow,
they couldn't get there. I mean, they had that Randy Moss. You argue Randy Moss was a part of both of maybe two of the greatest teams not to get there, because Moss was on that team in a fixture, and then he was for Tom Brady in the year that they were pushing the undefeated thing. Yeah, they went 15-1 that year, Buck, and lost to the Atlanta Falcons and the Dirty Bird.
That's right.
Oh, and the guy, he hadn't missed a kick all year long. Gary Anderson. And he misses the kick. I still don't know how that happened. And as we said with Boston last night, the Bruins, to be a minute away from advancing, you're up 3-2. You got this thing in Game 7. You're going to move on. Florida pulls the goaltender to put the extra attacker on the ice, and they get the equalizer. And then you knew at that point, this is not going to be good. This is not going to be good. And down they go. Yeah, your Minnesota Viking, 98, Randall Cunningham, Chris Carter, Robert Smith, Randy Moss, 15-1. Come on!
Smooth Robert, Dr. Smith.
All right, here's how it went for the Longhorns. 5 players drafted, kind of all around where we thought they would. We knew, we had Bijan pegged at Atlanta, and if he didn't take him, they didn't take him. We thought maybe Philadelphia at 10. But Atlanta takes Bijan. We talked a lot about that on Friday. Then Friday, this is where I thought Roschon Johnson would go around the 90th pick, right? We kept saying that, right around 90, maybe even those comp picks at the end of the 3rd round. But instead, it was DeMarvion Overshown, like Bucky's dream indicated and previewed, drafted with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, listen to Louis Riddick of ESPN. We played this earlier, but it bears playing again. There are going to be some mixed reviews on this DeMarvion Overshown pick because he's a converted safety who hadn't played a lot of linebacker. But as you said, Bucky, his best football to come potentially. Here's Louis Riddick, ESPN's lead draft analyst, really likes this pick for your Dallas Cowboys.
DeMarvion Overshown, a converted safety, Lewis, and you see it when you watch him on tape.
Listen, I get excited talking about this dude. All right, 6'2", 230, 4.56. Look, I talked to Steve Sarkisian about DeMarvion Overshown. He is a freaking heat-seeking missile. Period. Every hit is like that. every single one. And he has really, really taken to the key and diagnose part of the game, both in terms of his run fits and his pass fits. He knows exactly how to pattern match. It's getting better and better. He's a guy who has good hands. He can stay on his feet, take on blocks. It's the hits, though. It's the impact hits, and he is a hell of a special teams player. Dallas has got them one right here, and he's not too far away, right down the street in Austin. You're going to go right up now, going up there to Frisco. This kid right here is one of the most unsung, I believe, sleepers in this draft. I know it's a third round. It's not that much of a sleeper. But the Marvion Overshown is the real deal. Him and Micah Parsons together, ooh, boy, that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Overshown looks like a guy. I mean, if he's 230, he looks more on the side going towards 245 more than 230. Well, he is big. I mean, he's a big
he's got
guy.
long arms and broad shoulders, but he's kind of lean. And
it's a tall I'm thinking of 6'3". He is. Well, he's big.
We said all through the draft process that, man, Cowboys DeMarvion, it just seems like, Dan Quinn's idea of positionless football. He fits that. He likes big safeties that are rangy and can cover. Now, this is what you would consider an undersized linebacker, but if he plays at 235, how undersized is he? And when he can run like he does, right? He ran in the 4.5s and will strike you.
Well, maybe I'm wrong about Van Der Esch. Maybe Van Der Esch is more closer to the
Van Der Esch is thicker, right? Van Der Esch plays 245.
Okay.
Big boy, but yeah, very athletic. I mean, that's what you liked about Van Der Esch coming out of Boise State when he did. All right, so DeMarvion goes. There's Louis Riddick's thoughts, and obviously DeMarvion was overwhelmed, and those are the great scenes when the call comes, and it's the Star Complex, and you can see it on your caller ID, and you just get the chills and the goosebumps, and the whole family gets going. It's really awesome. Now, Roschon Johnson then had to wait on to Saturday, and that's a tough go to sleep. Roschon knew he wasn't going to get picked on the first round, but he thought maybe on day 2. You got to go to sleep on Friday night not being picked, but you knew it was going to come pretty early, and it did. Roschon Johnson to the Bears at pick 115, and I thought Chicago had a real nice draft. We'll go through some of the top drafts coming up from the whole weekend. But listen to this, Buck. The guy that John Syty, S-Y-T-Y, he was the Bears Southwest area scout who was the lead scout on on Roschon Johnson, and pounded the table for him. And how about this? He said, and we know this about him. He said, but he was talking to the Chicago media. All right, who's this guy, Roschon Johnson? So they brought the lead scout, and he said, this human being is wired differently. The more time you spend around him, the more you realize you're the one that probably has the stuff that you need to be working on. He's that kind of guy. This is a young man who has some pretty special qualities in terms of leadership. He's someone we really feel can be a pillar in our organization for a long time. I really feel strongly about this guy. I'm excited you guys get to meet him. There's a level of it factor to the kid. The second he walks in the room, you guys are all going to feel it. And then he got emotional, got choked up. He's like, man, we can't believe we got this guy with pick 115 in Chicago to go with, Justin Fields and DJ Moore and the rebuild effort. Also there, Deontay Foreman. Remember, they signed him. They also, because they remember David Montgomery, who was their lead running back last year, he's now in Detroit.
Right.
It's part of the reason the Lions traded DeAndre Swift. So Roschon's going to have a chance to go in there and compete to be the
Bears did a good job in the draft. There were a lot of teams got a lot better.
Well, I agree, and we'll run through some of the top ones. But yeah, Bears had a good draft. I mean, remember they gave up the 9th pick or the first pick to go back to 9, and then they got DJ Moore, which is something they absolutely wanted. It wasn't a great wide receiver draft this year, so the Bears got an experienced 25-year-old, go-to wide receiver in that move, which was kind of their intention when they made it. But then, the draft picks, including Roschon Johnson, I thought really strong for the Chicago Bears. And again, we'll run through some of the best drafts and best picks of the weekend. But on the Longhorns, Buck, the other picks were Keandre Coburn to the Chiefs. They're always looking to stuff the run and have guys at the point of attack. They get him in the 6th round.
Yep.
And then the Eagles snagged Moro Ojomo, who, as we've talked about, Buck, I think he, Ojomo, and Roschon and DeMarvion's best football to come, right? I mean, they're two of them made position changes in college. And it feels like their best football could be ahead of them. And not to say Keandre Coburn and Bijan Robinson's aren't, but those are 5 picks. None for the Longhorns a year ago, 5 this year.
Ojomo's not going to be pressed into action in Philadelphia either. I mean,
no,
they'll give him some time to grow and get his head right before they
forget growing. I don't know if he can beat those dudes out that are sitting on that line right now. That's
funny.
They got a whole bunch of guys that are really, really good.
Yeah. At his press conference, Howie Roseman, who's getting a lot of plaudits for his draft again this weekend and the trade he made for DeAndre Swift, the juggernaut he's built there pretty quickly. But he was asked about Morrow, and he said, our 7th-round pick, when we talk about him, is a guy who has traits in his body. He's got 34-inch arms, went to Texas as a 16-year-old, tremendous testing. He's got positional versatility. Was standing out on our board. We're excited to get him that late in the draft.
Well, they're building quite a defense there.
Was it a surprise for you that he went after Coburn did?
Yeah, I think so. But again, when you get to the 6th and 7th round, everybody's board is different, so it's hard to predict, and everybody has needs that they're looking for. And flyers they may want to take. I shouldn't say flyers, but guys that they really like and covet that fits their scheme, fits with their somebody that they lost and they can grab it. And Keandre Coburn for their he's gonna be playing behind Chris Jones and that game wrecker in Kansas City. By one other piece of good news for Longhorn football, Buck, in addition to those guys drafted, Anthony Cook signed with the Chiefs. Speaking of Kansas City, Deshaun Jameson signed with the 49ers. You know what else happened yesterday in the world of football? Sunday, the transfer portal closed. And the Longhorns didn't have anybody else jump into it. And that speaks well of the culture for Steve Sarkisian.
Well, that's good because anybody jumping out of the basketball portal?
Yeah, well, that was the gut punch on Friday with Ron Holland. We'll get into that for Texas basketball because that was a killer, losing the only freshman high school player you had left in your class on Friday. We'll talk about that coming up. But, yeah, for the Longhorn football team, well, because there was obviously thought coming off the spring game that maybe Malik Murphy might look into jumping into the portal, and he's sticking here. He believes in Steve Sarkisian and the development. He believes Sark when he says he'll give him a chance to compete. And Malik Murphy, now that portal will open again, but at the same time for the spring, it's closed as of Sunday for portal players.
Yeah.
And all of Deion Sanders' players are into that portal at this point.
You guys still have a lot of work to do there.
So in the end, coming out of spring, the Longhorns had guys who were at the down on the 3rd and 4th spots on a depth chart were the ones that jumped into their rut. I mean, the best player that transferred was Brennan Thompson, the speedster. He went to Oklahoma, but Jaden Alexis at receiver were really guys that really weren't going to compete. I don't think for a lot of playing time for Texas this year. They're just looking for another spot. So that closed yesterday. We will start looking at the drafts. We'll talk about the unbelievable day and Sunday in sports yesterday with 3 Game 7s. Our buddy Mike Hards let us know that Patriots team was 2007-8. And that's right, 2008, when the Patriots were 18-0 going into the Super Bowl. All they had to do was beat the lousy New York Giants.
That was a David Tyree catch, right?
The David Tyree Velcro on the helmet catch. And, Tom Coughlin, your former boss, Buck, did an incredible job of slowing down one of the greatest offenses ever to hit an NFL field. And the pass rush, the pressure, they just harassed Tom Brady. And that was a team in New England that just outscored everybody. They were good on Bill Belichick's defense, but the offense was unstoppable, and they got stopped. Much like the Boston Bruins did yesterday. Who is the greatest team in sports history in team sports not to win the championship, not to finish the deal? We'll take your vote on that coming up. Your Minnesota Vikings 98 could have been a good one.
For sure.
But we will pick up these conversations. Best draft, including our man Dane Brugler of theathletic.com. He is out this morning with his drafts ranked 1 to 32. Likes the Texans a lot. Not as happy with the Cowboys. We'll get you details next.
It's Bucky and Erin.
Good, bad, and ugly on a Monday. What was good for you over the weekend? What was bad? And what was just downright ugly? Also asking who is the greatest team in sports history not to win the championship off the heels of what happened yesterday to the Boston Bruins, also to the Milwaukee Bucks. Because the Bruins, obviously have the claim to having the greatest regular season in NHL history, and they didn't even get out of the first round. So we're getting some good suggestions. This one hits close to home and hits right in the gut. 1983 Houston Cougars, Phi Slamma Jamma.
I got to believe my Yankees are in there somewhere. Didn't they have a big lead over the Red Sox at one time and lost 3 straight?
Aaron freaking Boone.
Come on, Booney.
How about the Miami Hurricanes team with the call in the end zone against Ohio State?
That wasn't their fault, though.
Well, it was pass interference.
You think so?
Yeah. Randy Crystal of Austin, Texas made
There
that
you go.
call.
Make that call, Randy.
Make that call. How about the, this is a good one. This says the 90s Atlanta Braves, because the Braves with Smoltz, Maddox, and Glavine only won one. Probably should have won more than that with that pitching staff and Bobby Cox and all that they did, but they did win the one. But yes, for the decade,
they were in Bobby Cox forever.
That was, to have those 3 arms, and then they had other good pitchers on top of it, and Chipper Jones and all the talent they had in Atlanta.
They had Fred McGriff. Was the Crime Dog there?
Crime Dog.
Crime Dog was there.
I like this texture. The Miami Heat team, the first year, the big 3 in Miami were together with LeBron.
That's a good one.
Mavericks took them down.
Yeah, Golden State 73-9. 2008 Texas football. If Colt hadn't gotten hurt.
What?
2000. That team a little bit overachieved. Of course, the game against Nebraska, but yeah, Colt McCoy to Jordan Shipley and Quan Cosby was unstoppable. Even Nick Saban wouldn't have been able to stop it. Colt hadn't gotten hurt.
Pretty much admitted
it. That game.
Greg McElroy's admitted it since. He said Colt McCoy stays in that game, we probably don't win.
Okay, so we'll take your best games or teams never to win a championship. Also, who gets the highest draft grades coming out of the draft? And I think the key, the big macro question, Buck, coming out of the draft for me is, I still think the Cowboys are absolutely number 2 in the NFC. Mm-hmm. But based on what we've seen through the free agent period and into the draft and what happened over the weekend, have the Philadelphia Eagles even further separated from them and the rest of the NFC?
I believe so.
That's the fear. Because I thought the Cowboys had a nice draft. The Schoonmaker pick, the tight end in the second round of Michigan, I think was a reach, but obviously the Cowboys were going to take a tight end, and there was a big run on that position. So, that makes sense. But, the Philadelphia Eagles, to be already in the Super Bowl, to get the Jalen Hurts contract done, lock up your QB.
Get Swift out of this deal was unbelievable.
Well, start with the picks. So if you go back to the 2021 Georgia defense, 2021 Georgia Bulldogs, it's in the conversation of the most dominating defenses in college football history.
Right.
They allowed 2.6 yards per carry. They only allowed one team to score, double digits. It was crazy how great that defense was. And it carried them to their first national championship. Let me get the number of teams that scored double digits on that defense during the course of the year. Ridiculous what they did. 2.6 yards per carry allowed. Now, that defense was better than this year's defense, but this year's defense was still really good. But statistically, the 2021 defense was one of the greatest of all time in college football. Well, Howie Roseman and the Eagles have proceeded to draft the guts of that defense. In last year's draft, they drafted Jordan Davis, the massive 340-pound tackle, who was a big reason why they allowed 2.6 yards per carry. They also drafted the linebacker, Nakobe Dean. Well, this year, and they turn around and draft Jalen Carter, who most who watched that defense in 2021 said he was the best player on it, the most dominating player on it, playing next to Jordan Davis, the absolute game record. Now, he fell to them because of the off-field stuff. No one doubts his talent, but if he's mature enough to handle Philadelphia, and you got to think him going to a team that's already got a bunch of his teammates on it, could be a good
played
thing
in
for
a
him.
Super Bowl. Yes.
A team with got a lot of good veterans like Philadelphia does, Fletcher Cox, and
you're right.
But then his own teammates are there, guys who, can help him along here. This is familiarity. They also drafted Nolan Smith with pick 30. He is the edge rusher who got hurt this year in November, had a torn pec, but he should be back and fully healthy. Of course, Nolan was the one that ran 4.3 at the combine. Got him coming off the edge now. Then they drafted Keely Ringo.
How did Keely Ringo, who ran 4.3 something at the combine, why did he go so late?
Well, I mean, the only thing
and he's tall and he's fast,
and he's a competitor. He's an alpha dog on the edge.
He was their captain. Was he not their captain for
one of them? And he's a playmaker. Now, the NFL always they're not looking for college numbers. They're looking at projections, and the projection on Keely's a little bit stiff. He's not the most fluid player. Now, but when I look at Keely Ringo, I see a guy that can play corner early but could shift to safety.
Yeah, I think they're going to probably shift him before it's said and done to be a safety.
Because he's big. Yeah. Long arms, physical.
Intercepts the ball,
Yeah, heady, ball hawk. But to get those three guys on top of the two you drafted last year, Eagles are building something. They also drafted Moro Ojomo. They drafted Tyler Steen, the offensive tackle out of Alabama, with pick 65, and Sidney Brown, the safety from Illinois, with pick 66. That guy's got a high grade, so they got a safety and a corner with their picks in the 3rd and 4th round, and then they drafted a quarterback in Tanner McKee because Howie Roseman always drafts a quarterback. But Eagles, and then they trade, kind of a steal for DeAndre Swift, who everybody in the league knew was going to be on the block once they drafted Jameer Gibbs and signed David Montgomery.
He's going to want a bunch of money, yeah.
Well, for 1 year, you got this guy.
Yes.
Playing for a contract. They'll probably let him go.
Oh, they will.
And they didn't give up a lot to get him.
Nope.
So now DeAndre Swift comes in to play along with Boston Scott and
Kenneth Gainwell,
Rashad Penny. That's a great pickup. And so the question becomes, did Philadelphia extend their, width and gap between themselves and the rest of the NFC? I think the Cowboys are right there, but obviously the Eagles are in the same division, and they're the team to beat. I also think teams coming out that had good – I think the Detroit Lions, Buck, have put themselves into the conversation.
They did.
And the Seattle Seahawks. Because we know the Seahawks had the best draft a year ago as far as starters drafted, 6 of them. They also had the most snaps played by rookies last year, and they made the playoffs. Well, this year they turned around and drafted Devon Witherspoon, the corner out of Illinois, then Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's going to play opposite DK Metcalf and catch balls from Geno Smith. They also drafted Zach Charbonnet, the running back out of UCLA, which is an interesting pick because they already have Kenneth Walker. Now they have a 2-headed monster at running back. Like that pick a lot for them. They had a really, really good draft, and John Schneider, their general manager, is about as good as it gets. Dane Brugler of theathletic.com, he's the one that does that comprehensive draft guide, The Beast. He has come out this morning with his top drafts 1 to 32. He has Philadelphia at number 1 and has Keely Ringo as the biggest surprise that he was there that late. But Jalen Carter might have been the draft's best player, and they got him at 9 to go with an already formidable.
Do you think that was their deal the whole time with the whole Bijan thing?
We'll never know, and I don't know. Because the draft for Swift tells you they were looking for a running back, and they wanted to bring in an upgrade at the position, and he came available. Who knows? But when Jalen Carter's sitting there, remember they traded up with the Bears to make sure no one else traded ahead of them to get Jalen Carter, who had slid that far. But they still may have taken Bijan. At the same time, number 2 on Dane Brugler's list, the Indianapolis Colts. With Anthony Richardson, Julius Brents, the big long-arm corner out of K-State in the 2nd round, Josh Downs, the wide receiver from North Carolina, who a lot of people had up as a first-round draft pick. He went all the way at pick 79. They had a nice draft. So the Indianapolis Colts, and they ended up with like 12 picks on the day or on the weekend. But then right behind them in their own division, the Houston Texans, according to Dane Brugler, getting 2 of the draft's top 5 players or top 4 players in C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. And Dane was quick to say, he said, these rankings focus only on the players added, not the value or trade comprehension giving up.
Right.
Unsurprisingly, then the Texans will rank high to getting C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson, cornerstone players for the franchise. And Dane also likes the Texans' pick of Jarrett Patterson as a center out of Notre Dame. Now, the Texans in the 3rd round made Nick Caserio was making a bunch of trades. He was moving back and up and all over the place this weekend. But in the 2nd round, Buck, they traded up and took Juice Scruggs out of Penn State. They needed a center. They didn't really go into the draft with a starting center locked in, so they took one.
He's played 62. Center and guard. He's good.
Yeah, taller guy. Mm-hmm. They really like his projectables, and so they get him. And then I really like their pick at 69, and it will be debated because Jalen Hyatt, the wide receiver from Tennessee, was still there. And they obviously targeted and zeroed in on Houston wide receiver Tank Dell. And they took Tank over Jalen Hyatt. They saw Jalen Hyatt as more of a straight-line speed guy who had some route running that he's got to work on. Tank Dell is one of the quickest players in the draft, lightning off the line of scrimmage, and runs great routes. So Tank Dell joins their wide receiver core as a 3rd-round pick. And then Dylan Horton, pick 109 out of TCU, the sack leader in the Big 12 this year, went to the Houston Texans. And I like to pick at 167, Buck. Henry Toto. How do we say his name out of Alabama?
From Bama?
From Bama.
Tuaoto.
So DeMeco Ryans gets 2 Alabama guys, Will Anderson and Tua Oto. Also, then they take Jarrett Patterson, the center from Notre Dame, and I read that the Texans had him pretty similar grade to Juice Scruggs. So they got 2 centers, but as you said, Juice can play guard. So, I mean, the one thing the Texans did this offseason, they know they have Laramie Tunsil at left tackle and Titus Howard at right tackle.
Yeah, they're showing up that old line now.
But remember, they traded for Shaq Mason, who had played on the Super Bowl team in Tampa at guard. They also drafted last year, 15th overall, Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. And now this draft, they get 2 interior offensive linemen. They really want to be able to run the football. I mean, it's going to be the Kyle Shanahan type of offense where you got to be powerful for the run game. And, Damian Pierce is a part of that, and give your quarterback, C.J. Stroud, a lot of play action opportunities. That's what they're looking for down in Houston. So Dane Brugler says they had the 3rd best weekend. Seattle 4, the Chicago Bears 5. And as we said, Darnell Wright, Roschon Johnson with pick 115. Bears 5, according to Dane Brugler. Packers 6. He liked their draft. Pittsburgh Steelers, Buck. How about them getting Joey Porter Jr., son of the great Steeler Joey Porter, with the first pick of the 2nd round. They fielded a lot of phone calls to trade it, but they stuck with it to get a corner that a lot of people had a first round grade on, including you, Buck.
Yep.
They liked him a lot. They also are the team to watch for because the Cowboys took the Michigan tight end Shoemaker in the 2nd round. Darnell Washington out of Georgia was still on the board, a guy I like a lot. There were reports that there was a medical red flag on Darnell, and that's why he slid to pick 93. We're not privy to those, right? Every team does their medical on a player at the combine. Darnell may have had a red flag for some teams, so he slid all the way down. But Darnell Washington at 265, 270 just feels like a Pittsburgh Steeler kind of player. So Dane Brugler, those are his top. Detroit's number 9 on his list. Cowboys, according to Dane, 24 on their draft haul over the weekend. He said in the past, the Cowboys' organizational philosophy had been to wait, but he really liked the pick of Mozzie Smith. Applauds them for that pick, but wasn't blown away with the 2nd and 3rd day of their draft. He did like the Overshown pick, but thought Shoemaker was a reach with the pick 2 out of Michigan. So, again, one person's opinion. Dane Brugler is one of the best, but at the same time, we won't know how these picks pan out for 3-4 years. But it does feel like the Eagles, T.Y., does feel like the Eagles separated a little bit, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably had a better draft. The Cowboys addressed a lot of the biggest needs they had, and then the rest of their picks are kind of luxury picks, in my opinion. That DeMarvion Overshown pick, you could have taken someone that's probably going to make more of an impact next year, but to have a guy like that and like sitting behind,
that dude's going to be in every special teams you have.
Yeah, for DeMarvion, I love the Demo pick for them. I really thought that was a spot for Roschon Johnson, but they took Deuce Vaughn later in the draft, which we like, and we'll play that sound again. What a scene for that family to have, Chris Vaughn, his father, who works in the scouting department, calling his son in tears to inform him the team had drafted him. That is so awesome. This says 49ers are way better than the Cowboys. Agree with that? 49ers way better than – now, they've been better in January each of the last 2 seasons in the divisional round of the playoffs, but both games were down to the wire. I wouldn't say way better.
No.
And I think the Cowboys have had a great offseason, and the 49ers have some quarterback issues they're still dealing with. But, yes, the Niners, Cowboys, and Eagles are the 3 best teams, however you want to rank them. I think Seattle is now in the conversation, and I think the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, the Lions are there, too.
Have joined Minnesota as a real threat for that division because Dan Campbell's team. You know who else Detroit took that I like, in addition to targeting players that need positions? Because the Lions will be criticized for some of their positional value picks with a running back at 12 and a linebacker at 18. But they drafted guys that didn't come in and start immediately and impact their team. Screw the positional value. We want to win right now. They're going to a win-now mode. They also drafted, though, developmentally, Hendon Hooker. Detroit drafted Hendon Hooker. So they're the team that can let Jared Goff be the quarterback, and they can wait and let this young guy develop. I like that a lot for the Detroit Lions, who are a factor. So we'll start ranking the divisions as we get going here.
The Browns. For the Browns, what are the thoughts for the Browns? Deshaun Watson has to show unbelievable improvement this year, right? I mean, they need that to happen for them.
Well, the Browns said that he was a big part of their draft picks. I thought the Browns, for not having a first or second round pick, had a good draft. So we'll get into the AFC coming up. That's the NFC, though. Eagles, really good draft. I thought Detroit did a nice job to address their needs. Seattle had a great draft again, and they're back in the conversation with Geno Smith right there with the 49ers. We'll get to the AFC South as well. That's where Bijan Robinson lands in Atlanta. Coming up, though, T.Y. will lead us through the hot or not topics, things we've missed halfway through this jam-packed Monday on B&E. Hot and not, first day of May. That's hot. It's going to be warm this week, too. Temperatures in the 80s. A lot of sunshine this week. Looking pretty good for the Mullet Open on Friday.
And, of course, in the 90s.
Muggy and low 90s is what it looks like for the golf tournament coming up on Friday, which is a big part of the week. Also, Buck, on a hot or not, several people mentioned, I mentioned 2009 Texas if Colt doesn't get hurt. A lot of people were saying 2008 Texas, the team that didn't get to play for the championship because of the Crabtree game out in Lubbock. And
oh, that hurt.
Of course, that was a Mac Brown team quarterbacked by Colt McCoy that went 12-1. They beat everybody else. They gave away. They coughed up the Texas Tech game. Remember, that Tech game was the fourth in a row against top 10 teams or top 15 teams, and they lost it. Fell behind early, got back, got the lead, and then couldn't hold the lead. That was a gut punch. And they went on to win the rest of the games, beat Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl on a Quan Cosby touchdown. But they didn't. The Sooners and Florida Gators. Tim Tebow.
Is that the year Sooners got wrecked?
No, that was USC. It was a close game, and that 24-14, I think, was the game in the championship. But Longhorn fans still believe they should have been playing in that game, not Oklahoma. But we know how the tiebreaker rule was in the Big 12, and that was some crazy radio we were doing then. Because remember, Texas through October beat Oklahoma, who was ranked first. Missouri was 11th. Oklahoma State was 7th, and Tech was 6th. And they lost that Tech game 39-33. And run the rest of the games. It was Colt McCoy's best year, I believe.
Dadgum Crabtree. Push him out of bounds. Push him out of bounds.
Well, let's not even bring up the current safeties coach at the University of Texas. I won't even bring that up.
That was one of the most.
Was that the one through the wickets?
Who, Blake Gideon?
I was crying.
Everybody was crying.
I had a grown man screaming in my face, Tech fan.
Oh, and this conversation, by the way, is based on the Boston Bruins not getting out of the first round after posting the greatest regular season in NHL history. But yeah, best teams not to win. 90-91 UNLV basketball. 85 Georgetown Hoyas have been mentioned. Pretty good. But yeah, 08 Texas football has been mentioned many times because that was a really good team. And Crabtree wrecked them.
Right through the wickets.
But again, we were doing the watch party at Doc's Backyard, which is still a great place there in South Austin, my buddy Charles. And I'm sure it was the same scene everywhere, but I've never seen a fan base so excited and then so demoralized all in a 20-second span because everybody thought Blake Gideon caught the interception. Everybody. So place went bananas. Everywhere went bananas. And then they looked up because when they stopped cheering and realized, oh, what a second, what happened? He didn't catch the interception because that would have ended the game. They were going to win it.
It went right through the donut.
Oh, my gosh.
It went right through the donut.
Didn't he have like his first career interception against Alabama the next year?
No, Blake Gideon was a 4-year starter for Texas.
Played more downs than anybody, I believe.
He was a really good player.
He had like 1 or 2 interceptions his whole career.
That was his freshman year, but yeah, that would have been a game clincher.
Dude, that was like that, and that ball was not that difficult. It was, and I got in trouble.
It did get tipped. There was a tip. There was a finger, but he still should have caught the football.
It's in the bread basket.
It went right through the hole, right through the donut.
How did he not catch that?
That was a
Blake's
fake
probably
punt.
driving into the facility and I go, would you guys quit talking about this? Wrong with you?
I quit because everybody got mad at me. I'm like, I said, that dude would tell you himself that he should have never, that should have never been.
Definitely.
That was like one that your sister throws over to you, right? And it doesn't go through the wickets. You catch that, right?
Twist the knife.
I'm not twisting. I'm just saying that's like your sister saying, "Here, you catch this. Here, catch this ball." But it went right through the donut. It didn't touch his hands. I think it went right through the.
Yeah, just didn't get his hands on it. Went right to his bread basket and down it went. But yeah, then everybody was just demoralized, and you knew what was. It's kind of like the Bruins last night. Once they let the goal in with under a minute to play, you just knew the outcome. And of course, they don't push Crabtree out of bounds. And
oh my goodness,
skates into the end zone, and just brutal.
And that was with no time, right? When he.
No, they had a little bit of time.
They did.
There's still a little bit of time there, but yes,
time for one more play.
But they still would have had to score a touchdown if you push him out of bounds there. And that was Earl Thomas, one of the greatest Longhorn defensive backs ever, that didn't push him out of bounds. But 2 critical plays there prevented the Longhorns from potential. Because I do think the Longhorns would have stacked up very favorably because they had crushed Oklahoma earlier in the year, which is why Texas fans thought they should have been ahead. But the tiebreaker went to OU. And again, how about a Colt McCoy, Tim Tebow matchup, which would have been phenomenal in the championship game. T.Y., what do you have for us in Hot or Not on a Monday morning?
Deion Sanders back in the news with his comments on the NFL draft and the NFL as a whole. He's ashamed of the NFL that for the fact that only one historically black college player was selected in the draft. When there was a few guys that were expected to. One of the guys, I forget his name, but he signed with the Cowboys. He's from Florida A&M, And there's been kind of a lot of backlash here because clearly, I mean, obviously he left Jackson State this year for a better job. So him defending this, what do y'all think about that?
He's ashamed of the NFL. Do you think, was he saying they were excluded?
He's I mean, he's said that more guys deserved the opportunity to be drafted than there were.
Well, it's his.
Well, he should have stayed to help out.
Don't kick all your players off your own team, for crying out loud. No, but look, that's his opinion. He played the NFL. He follows the NFL, and he was in that conference, or in that division of football, so understands the talent level. Well, that's Deion's opinion. We'll take your thoughts on it. Hot or not on that.
Isaiah Bolden was the only player drafted out of Jackson State, cornerback.
Okay. Hey, do you know that? Did you see Shohei Ohtani yesterday on Hot or Not? He hit a home run that was the highest altitude a baseball has ever gone since they were able to track the metric of longest and highest home runs. Its highest point of altitude was the most towering home run ever measured.
Wow.
How many feet?
Shohei, I
really high.
I'll let you know on the other side, but amazing. This guy pitches, hits. He is the modern day Babe Ruth.
Long enough to go over the fence, but high enough to get out of the stadium.
Height. Not the longest home run, the highest home run. We will come back, recap all the headlines, including Longhorn baseball. 2 up, already won the series at TCU. They go for the sweep today, and it's the return of Tanner Witt. Also, 5 Longhorns drafted into the NFL. An incredible day of Game 7s on the ice and in basketball. It's Beanie on the Horn. Put them together for Monday on B&E. What a Monday it is. Beautiful weather over the weekend after the Friday storms. Produced some gorgeous outdoor activity weather. And there was something going on everywhere. If you wanted to get outside and enjoy that. It was a great weekend in the ATX. The final weekend of April, which means today is the first day of May. And we're talking all things NBA playoffs, NHL. How about the Boston Bruins, Major League Baseball, Longhorn Baseball, and yes, the NFL Draft. And our hot or not, I mentioned the Shohei Ohtani home run yesterday. 162 feet above the ground. It launched off of Colin Ray. Since StatCast started being able to track baseballs in 2015, his home run yesterday was the highest ever measured. Exit velocity of 114.3, 39 degrees of launch, a hang time of 7 seconds before it landed in the outfield bleachers in Milwaukee. So, Shohei Ohtani. Also on the hot or not side, we're talking about best teams not to win the championship based on the Milwaukee Bucks and Boston Bruins, both having the best records in their respective sports regular season, but not getting out of the first round of the playoffs. The Bruins is the most amazing. They had the greatest regular season by record of all time in the NHL and lost in overtime yesterday to Florida. We were talking about the 2008 Longhorn football team. This one says, guys, you don't forget, you also have to thank Art Briles for ranking Texas 9th in his poll, which caused Oklahoma to skate past Texas by a fraction of a point, and that was the Big 12 tiebreaker. Remember, whoever was ranked higher in the national poll would be the winner, and Art stinking Briles. There aren't enough reasons not to like that guy. He voted God, I remember our shows from those days. It was just so vicious. Like, really, 9th? I mean, they're at least the third or fourth best team in the country. Lost one ball game on a heart attack play at the end to Texas Tech. Are you kidding me? They averaged 45 points a game. Colt McCoy.
Come on,
Art Briles. That's just to stick it to the Longhorns. Then the Sooners went and lost to Florida in the national championship game. This says he hit one off the Tokyo Dome ceiling once too. Wow. Shohei. It says, guys, it was too windy on Saturday to do anything. Not really. Nice breeze. Get out to Founders Day, Buck. If you did that, wiener dog races in Buda.
Down there yesterday to Founders.
How's that?
Good.
See my guy Dale and the team at Snake Farm?
Dude, I was there early morning. I mean, if you didn't get down there before like 11 o'clock.
Traffic.
Oh, going through that place, wow.
Somebody said, has anybody checked on Tom McKay's daughter? Oh, that's funny. That's pretty good. And that's pretty good. How about this? Also on the best teams not to win the championship. This one stings, too, because somebody mentioned Phi Slamma Jamma. The 2019 Astros, who coughed up Game 6 and 7 to the Nationals. They had Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole at the top of the rotation. They had Correa was still playing shortstop. That's a good one. I don't know how they didn't.
They were banging trash cans.
Oh, well.
Still couldn't pull it out.
I think they'd been caught for the trash can thing by then, didn't they? But, yeah, they had 2 home games to win it. But how about your 2011 Texas Rangers tie?
Yeah, that one hurt.
Sorry. Too early, too soon?
I think enough time has passed.
Do not.
Oh, no, he feels good after this weekend.
I'm feeling great.
Yeah, well, that stings. That stings a lot.
Injuries doesn't matter.
Several people have mentioned the 116-win Seattle Mariners of 2001. That's a good one. But, yeah, the Boston Bruins now join that unfortunate conversation. Let's get to the headlines, trending topics to start your Monday morning as you get up and out. Top Gun Equipment Rentals bring you the news. And, yeah, man, it's plenty of it, including the Longhorn baseball team. What a finish to a series-clinching 3-2 win for the Longhorns in Fort Worth yesterday afternoon. They took Game 1 Saturday night 8-4, Longhorns did. And then yesterday, looking to clinch Game 2, clinging to a 1-run lead in the ninth inning, but TCU put runners on the corners with just 1 out. David Shaw on the mound for the Texas Longhorns, looking to get out of the jam.
First pitch from Shaw. First pitch swung on and a fly ball to shallow left. Coming on, Porter Brown with a catch. Runner tags at third. Here comes the throw to the plate. The tag. He's out. The game is over. Longhorns win it. Texas takes it. And who is the hero again? Porter Brown. How do you like that? With a throw to the plate to end the ball game. And Texas takes the series from TCU.
Downtown Porter Brown. So many clutch hits this year. This time the TCU transfer against his former team. The unorthodox double play to end that ball game. Longhorns look to sweep that series today, 1 o'clock in Fort Worth. Longhorns now 10-7 in the Big 12. Tanner Witt scheduled to make his return from Tommy John surgery. Coach David Pierce says he'll likely pitch one inning to start the ball game. Texas football, 5 now former Longhorns drafted into the NFL over the weekend. A year ago, the program had 0 players selected, and we know Bijan Robinson went on Thursday night, number 8 overall to Atlanta, but then on Friday night, Cowboys selected linebacker DeMarvion Overshown with pick 90 in the 3rd round. Early Saturday, Bears took running back Roshan Johnson at pick 115. And defending champion Chiefs picked defensive lineman Keandre Coburn in the 6th round. The Philadelphia Eagles had a heck of a weekend under the defending NFC champs. They snagged his fellow line mate Moro Ojomo in the 7th round. A couple of Longhorns were signed as preferred free agents after the draft. 8 Anthony Cook, the safety, inked to deal with the Chiefs. Deshaun Jameson with the 49ers. Sunday in the national scene, pretty incredible. 3 Game 7s, 2 in the NHL, 1 in the NBA. Game 7 in the NBA featured an all-time historic performance from Steph Curry in Golden State. Curry poured in 50 points to lead the Warriors to a win on the road in Sacramento, 120-110. It's the highest individual point total in a Game 7 in league history. Warriors on to round 2. They'll face the Lakers. The other Western Conference semifinal series already underway. Saturday night, top-seeded Denver rolled past Phoenix in Game 1. They'll play again tonight. Also yesterday, after knocking out the top-seeded Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference, the 8th-seeded Miami Heat rolled into New York and took down the Knicks in Game 1, a 108-101. Jimmy Butler with 25. Game 1 of the other semifinal series in the East is tonight. Boston hosting Philadelphia. Pair of Game 7s in the NHL, all-time stunner in Boston, where the Bruins, who posted the greatest regular season of the league's history with a record of 65-12-5, 135 points, they are out as the Florida Panthers scored a goal late in regulation to tie the game, and then the winner in overtime, 4-3 final. An upset in Colorado last night, as well as break up the Kraken. Seattle Kraken became the first expansion team to beat the reigning Stanley Cup champs in their inaugural playoff series. They take down the Avalanche 2-1. Baseball, what a weekend for the Rangers. They take 3 out of 4 from the Yankees, including a 15-2 romp yesterday. Wasn't all good news, though, for Texas. The club placed their oft-injured ace Jacob deGrom on the injured list on Saturday with right forearm tightness. Down in Houston, meanwhile, Astros avoided a 3-game sweep at the hands of the Phillies in that World Series rematch. They win it last night 4-3, but bad news there, too. Houston starter Jose Urquidy exited that game in the 6th inning with shoulder soreness. Round Rock Express pounded Sacramento. What a start they're off to, 18-6 now for the Express. And the frustrating start to the year for Austin FC continued Saturday night. They played to a 2-2 draw. They finally broke that 400-minute goalless streak, but play to a 2-2 draw and don't get the 3 points.
How far away is Steph Curry from LeBron James? Is Steph Curry an older? Is he an older dude?
He's 35.
Yeah, and he's got to work hard. Some people say you can just sit out there and shoot threes, but he has to work for some of his threes. You got to be in great shape, E. So that longevity with his body wise, it's not like he's a 6'7" guy like Kevin Durant where he can just sit out there and shoot.
Well, it's funny because, we talked a lot in the lead up to the draft, and then I saw a lot of that conversation over the weekend that Bryce Young draws the Steph Curry comparisons that, a smaller, because why did Steph Curry go where he did in the draft? People thought he was too skinny, right? He was going to be not strong enough to handle the rigors of the NBA. People knew he could shoot, and his father had played in the NBA, but I don't think anybody would have projected that he was going to become the greatest point guard of all time, and he's in that conversation without a doubt. 50 points on the road, and there are just certain athletes, when you see that look in their eye, they just get that look. It's like, oh, man. Sacramento was in trouble from the jump. If you were watching that game, you're like, oh, boy, Steph's got the look. This isn't good.
I think he's a top 5 player, regardless of position all time. How many championships does he have? 4?
4, and last year's. And look, very few players can completely change a game, and Steph Curry has changed the way the sport is played.
Absolutely.
With his ability to shoot the basketball and make it a perimeter-oriented game where it was once dominated on the interior. Just unbelievable. Before his 50 yesterday, Kevin Durant owned the record for the most in a 50 in a Game 7. He had 48. And if you remember, Durant was the toe of his shoe away from a game-winning three-pointer, only to lose that game in overtime. But yeah, Durant scored 48 in a loss. Curry scored 50 in a win. And yeah, we can certainly have the debate of where he belongs. 7 three-pointers yesterday. He's still got the quickness and the quick shot.
He still goes down into the depths of those big men and gets clobbered and knocked around to the floor. But for longevity, he's not 6'7". He's not going to be able to just shoot over the top. Well, he shoots around you over the top anyway.
Look, he's already in the.
You said 35 years old.
Certainly is in the argument, and I think if they get back to the championship this year, and what you saw yesterday is someone's going to have to beat them 4 times. I mean, and it's hard to beat that dude 4 times. I mean, that's what we used to say about Jordan, right? That's what we used to say about Kobe. It's hard to beat that dude 4 times.
Yep.
Gosh, Jimmy Butler's trying to prove that over in the East because he's playing like a maniac for the Miami Heat right now. Playoff Butler, playoff Jimmy. But Steph Curry, man. From the mean streets of Akron, Ohio, originally, Buck. But yeah, he's got 4 championships, twice the Finals MVP, 2-time MVP of the league, 9 times an All-Star. Yeah, I mean, who's a better point guard, Magic Johnson? Point guard.
We have to count Magic as a point guard. Yes.
I mean, overall player.
I mean,
yeah, scoring ability. No,
they're 1 and 1A for me all time at the point. I mean,
who else is even in the conversation?
Tiny Archibald.
Isaiah Thomas would be in the debate, but it's not close. I mean, I don't think it's a close debate right now. But yeah, is he in the all-time starting 5 now?
Would you rate Kobe Bryant ahead of Stephen Curry, or has he eclipsed him?
Yeah, I mean, gosh.
Even talking about that is.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the top 5 all time as a player, and LeBron's in that debate too.
He's definitely the bet. Like out of all the greats, he's the one guy that didn't really have those expectations going into the league.
That's true. I mean, he doesn't come in as the one pick like Kareem and LeBron. Magic, of course, was the first pick of a draft.
Right.
How many? What were there was 3 point guards? Minnesota took 2 point guards ahead of him, and Johnny Flynn and Ricky Rubio.
Yeah, he's the biggest overachiever of all time because Jordan was the 3rd pick, and
he was so slight in college.
He had the ankle issues too. He still wears those like big old ankle braces every game. And still has issues with that, but overcoming all that's very impressive.
And performances like that just continue to further the legend and push the argument.
And for me, it's not about just the way he shoots; it's just the way how he has to work to get open a lot of times.
Just get some of those. Sniff the Mamba's jock. What's wrong with you?
Mamba love.
I think he can sniff his jock. I mean, Kobe, you could vote for him for the 2-way player that he was and the dominating force and. Who knows how many championships they could have won if Shaq and Kobe could have gotten along and stayed together with the Lakers in the early 2000s. But he has certainly put himself in the conversation. And then, look, the season's not over. What if they go win a championship this year?
Wow.
And there is no favorite now with Milwaukee out. And, Knicks are already down a game. Denver, by the way, did you see Jamal Murray the other night against the Phoenix Suns? That was impressive what they did to the Phoenix Suns in Game 1. Now, it's a long series, but Denver – backing up that number 1 overall seed status.
Yeah, Murray can hold his own with the rest of these guys right now.
It says, guys, Steph is like Tom Brady. Yeah, Tom Brady drafted in the 6th round. Magic has 5 titles, 9 appearances between 80 and 92. To me, it's 1 and 1A right there at the point guard position. I would also say this, Buck, and somebody texted, we appreciate your good, bad, and uglies. This says, teams not to win the championship, Patriots perfect season. Yeah, that was 08. The 18-0 Patriots losing to the Giants. We talked about that. Michigan Fab 5 didn't win the championship. That's true. Chris Webber, we don't have a timeout. Keep that in mind. No timeout.
Don't have a timeout, no.
And somebody mentioned, did you mention that down in Houston this weekend, Philadelphia Phillies slugger Cody Clemens, 2 home runs. 2 home runs. Yeah, he hit a home run on Friday night, or Saturday night for the Phillies, and then hit another one last night in the loss into the Crawford boxes. So, yeah, hometown kid. Coming home and putting on a show for sure. So we got a lot of NFL draft talk to get to. We've been through it all morning talking about the Longhorns 5 drafted. Good spots and all. I think DeMarvion Overshown from the Cowboys is pretty exciting. You had a dream that DeMarvion was going to be drafted by the Cowboys last week. Did you have a dream he was drafted or you saw him playing for the Cowboys?
No, I had a dream that he was going to be drafted by the Cowboys.
It was awesome.
And he and Van Der Esch were so similar in height and size. And I think DeMarvion his best football is ahead of him still. I really think so. I think he's going to be such a striker. I mean, and they're going to be able to line him up anywhere they want to.
Yeah, we've played the Louis Riddick sound a couple times this morning from the ESPN draft coverage, and he was just effusive in his praise for the pick and just how big time he can be. And, it's similar to Micah Parsons in its positional flexibility. You can put him all over the field. You can do a lot of different things, whether it's coverage or blitzing or, playing the run. The Cowboys should be better against the run next year. I mean, you bring in Mozzie Smith at defensive tackle, an extremely powerful 330-pounder at the point to hold things up. And, Then you get DeMarvion. You also kept Leighton Vander Esch in free agency. And I think Micah Parsons into year 3, I think just gets better, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like that just continues. Also, we mentioned the 30 players from the state of Texas who were drafted, including 2 from the local area. Elijah Higgins out of Austin Bowie High. FLXATX.com, baby. Elijah Higgins was picked with pick 197. And O'Shawn Mathis, who went to Manor High School and then went to TCU in Nebraska, he went with pick 189. So they kind of went in similar spots there. But congratulations to a couple of local products. Last year was Garrett Wilson being drafted in the top 10. That's what we love about our flex coverage, FLXATX.com, because these guys that we're talking about in high school right now may be draft picks of the future into the National Football League. By the way, 189 for O'Shawn Mathis was to the LA Rams. And then a few picks later, the Miami Dolphins took Elijah Higgins.
Boy, TCU's got a lot to replace.
By the way, TCU had, 7 or 9 players drafted, including Max Duggan in the 7th round. I like the Kendra Miller to the Saints. A lot of dudes
to replace.
Hey, listen. How about, speaking of the Miami Dolphins, Devin Achane to the Dolphins? I mean, that team already has Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and Rashawn.
They're going track team, straight up track team.
It's like the 4x100 Olympic team running around out there. Devin Achane is a big play waiting to happen. Yeah, Mike McDaniels just speed kills. Speed kills. Also of interest to me is that the AFC South drafted 3 of the top 4 quarterbacks in this draft. Of course, Bryce Young went number 1 overall to Carolina in the NFC South, but Houston took C.J. Stroud. Indianapolis going to hitch their wagon to Anthony Richardson out of Florida, and then Tennessee early in the 2nd round traded up to get Will Levis. So those 3 quarterbacks that we talked about a lot for the last month all end up in the same division, which means the evaluation will be judged because they're going to play twice a year.
And I noticed how I noticed is Arizona took a bunch of offensive linemen. So if Kyler Murray does decide to work out and get healthier, they'll be ready to protect him, or for the next quarterback that'll come walking through there.
I think Arizona's planning to be up there for that first pick next year.
Okay.
Really? And now they have Houston's pick for next year?
Okay, will that be –
I think
can you pay a guy that kind of money? And then
if you're drafting number 1 and Caleb Williams is available,
you just go ahead and get that done.
Bye, Kyler. Take your video games.
See you later.
We're moving on.
Go play some baseball.
And remember, it's a new coach and general manager. They didn't draft the player.
It's true.
And if Caleb Williams is sitting there and you're sitting at 1, Arizona seems kind of like that team this year with no Kyler Murray and who's going to play quarterback, but they did draft linemen and had a decent draft in and around that, and they acquired the pick from Houston in the Will Anderson trade. So we'll take your thoughts. Speaking of thoughts on Will Anderson, we're going to talk to our buddy John Harris coming up from the HoustonTexans.com and his draft guide, his thoughts on the Cowboys and the Texans and the Longhorns and where they landed. That's coming next here on Beanie. Viking fence, that horn is the reminder of the quality, the workmanship. You just think of it, and that's what they've done at Viking Fence for 50 years. And they're still locally owned and operated. They haven't sold out. They haven't changed what they do. It's been the same philosophy for 5 decades of installing and putting up the best and most durable, best looking fences you can find in Central Texas. And the proof is that they've invested in the materials. They've invested in the ability to control the raw materials for the fences and then the way in which they go about building it. They're the only company that has an on-site lumber mill that mills that Western red cedar to your exact specifications. They've got the pre-staining equipment too, so that not only do they have the fence pickets and posts coming out to your requirements, they're also pre-stained and ready to go and install. Same thing for the iron fences and gates that they do. Their custom iron facility with the bending equipment and cold hot forging capability. Pipe bending is the best. No one does it like that. They want to control that raw material so they control the quality of the work. They don't have to farm it out. They don't run down to the lumber yard to get your lumber. They do it right there. Same with the iron. And then they also can control the value. They can give you the value and the quality that you're looking for every single time. 837-6411. Find them online at VikingFence.com. When you think fence in Central Texas, for 50 years, it's a Viking Fence.
It's Bucky and Erin.
FLXATX.com, Flex Update. We told you that Elijah Higgins out of Bowie High was drafted into the National Football League. Picked, what was it? He gave you the number and where he went. He went with pick 197, O'Shawn Mathis also, and then at pick 212, Buck, from Round Rock Cedar Ridge High School. Here was the phone call from his own father, Chris Vaughn, to K-State running back Deuce Vaughn that, hey, this is going to be kind of cool. And here's the audio from that.
Hey, buddy.
How's it going?
Hey, it's going good. This is Dad. My phone wasn't working. Look at here, man. You want to come to work with me next week?
I wouldn't mind that.
Watch here.
All right, there you go. That is, boy, what a call a father gets to make.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine the elation when Jerry and Steven and Will McClay say, hey, why don't you call Deuce and let him know he's our pick here in the 6th round?
Bring a son to work day.
That was last Thursday.
Yeah.
Bring your kid to work day. It was last week. What are we doing? Man, but that was so awesome. Yeah, so 3 local products who we saw star in high school here, now off to play in the National Football League. And yes, the state of Texas did really good. The Big 12 had a good weekend. They've had, like last year, the Longhorns didn't have any. Now they had 5. TCU had, I think, the second most of any school behind Georgia drafted. And, of course, they lost to Georgia in the national
the conference
championship
that Texas will be going to had 64 players.
Yeah, Big 12. I mean, the SEC always pours players into the National Football League. But it's a good weekend. A lot going on. We got talk of Steph Curry after a 50-point performance. Guess what, Buck? They're going to play the Lakers now. This could be the last time we see Steph against LeBron in a playoff series with a lot on the line. LeBron, how about his performance and the Lakers' performance to close out the Grizzlies? They left no doubt on Saturday night. That was pretty impressive. So that's coming up in round 2. Okay, let's go to the Vaqueros hotline. I want to get some more depth into our draft conversation with our buddy John Harris of the HoustonTexans.com and, of course, the NFL Draft Guide, which is a resource, great resource over the weekend. Johnny, how are you, bud?
I think I got a little bit of sleep, so I think I'm doing okay. Finally, it was a long week. You know, it's interesting when a quarterback is involved. I think it's just that much more draining, especially the fact that I guess I just wrapped up with everybody else thinking, well, they're not going to take a quarterback. I guess all these other people are right, even though I still think that's the best play. My buddy Mike Meltzer is a radio host here. He's a lawyer here in town. And he uses the term, he calls it Occam's razor. It's like the most logical answer is usually the answer. And I guess that's kind of paraphrasing what happened. C.J. Stroud was always the guy. I mean, and I'm glad that he was. What we didn't know, and I had said to numerous people that night, of course, I was walking from the parking lot to our draft party radio booth. And they were asking me, what do you think? And I was like, well, I think it's Stroud or Anderson. Stroud or Anderson. Probably Anderson. Stroud or Anderson. Probably Anderson. I had the wrong word. I should have been saying and Anderson. And I just didn't see that part coming. And I think that's what made it so exciting.
So for Stroud, I mean, we know there was smoke leading up to it, but in the end, it was the pick they were going to make. But they obviously had a lot of a high grade on Will Anderson. Did they give up too much, John, with the 33rd pick and next year's first, which, no matter how improved the Texans are, it could be a high pick for Arizona. You've scouted Will Anderson since he was, got into Alabama. Is this a reach for the Texans to give up that much to get that player?
I've heard that a lot, Aaron, and sure, I mean, you gave up a lot. You gave up your, number 33 in this draft, and then you gave up your first next year, which, could very well be a top 5 pick. But I think what a lot of people are doing, I think, is misreading this in some sense, is the trade wasn't actually for Will Anderson. I know that's how it's going to go down in the books. But the trade was actually to make sure you got both of them. And I know Daniel Jeremiah in his mock draft had the Texans taking Anderson at 2, Stroud at 3. If the Texans would have gone in that order, I think they would have had to pay way more because I think the Titans would have been involved in the mix. And I think that the Colts potentially could have been involved in that mix trying to get to C.J. Stroud. So you're now taking Stroud off the board, probably eliminated the other 2 teams from potentially moving up. So, yeah, you still had to pay a lot to do that. Now, you also got a 4th rounder return. So you got Will Anderson and you got Dylan Horton for a first and a second, essentially. So, yeah, I think it's a decent amount to give up. But I'll never forget my mom saying this to me a long time ago. She's like, you get what you pay for. And the hope is in the draft that you paid a lot, but you'll get a lot for Will Anderson. It was interesting because when the Texans drafted Deshaun Watson back in 2017, there was a little bit of talk initially about, oh, you gave it first next year, you gave it first next year. When the 2018 draft rolled around, nobody gave a rat's you-know-what about the Texans not having a draft pick in 2018. They didn't care because they knew they had Deshaun Watson. And I think Texans fans will say, you know what? We gave up a lot. We still have Cleveland's pick, and hopefully Deshaun Watson doesn't do well with Cleveland. But we still have Cleveland's pick in next year's draft. So, yeah, we might not be as high up in the first round, but maybe things break right for us and don't for them, and it flips. Who knows? But we still have a first-round pick next year. And if Will Anderson is what we think he is, and I think he's going to be that for this team, I don't think we're going to, and C.J. Stroud as well, I think we'll look at that and go, we needed to be able to do that. We needed to raise the elite player quotient in this locker room, in this building, and we did that. I said this going in. I felt like this was a 4-player elite draft. I had been saying it for a while. It was Carter Anderson on defense. It was Young and Stroud on offense. You walked out of there with 2 of them. To me, a little bit to do it, great.
And there's no doubt about it, John. It didn't really matter which quarterback you got because the Texans were going to say, we got the guy. You can't leave there without saying we got the guy that we wanted. I mean, if Carolina would have taken Stroud, then the Texans were going to take Bryce Young as that guy. They couldn't leave without a quarterback, and you know you're going to say that's the guy we wanted in the whole. That our first pick was the guy we wanted all along. I mean that whole smokescreen stuff about the test and all that stuff, that just gives us something for the last couple of days before the draft. That's all that gave us. But you couldn't leave without taking one or the other. I mean, it didn't make any sense.
Yeah, Bucky, absolutely. But we all talk ourselves into. I say you all, not you all, but all of us talk ourselves into. Well, yeah, okay, it's draft time. Anything, and even Nick said it. Nick said it, and I'll never forget this. Nick had a press conference. Every GM has to do a pre-draft press conference. So he did his about 10 days out. And he was asked by a good friend of mine here in Houston, what about quarterback at number 2? Could you maybe not take a quarterback at number 2? And Nick's answer was Kevin Garnett all the way. Anything is possible. That day, the odds out in Vegas dropped C.J. Stroud off the board almost, and Bryce Young became the strongest number 1 candidate. All of a sudden, Will Levis is being mentioned at number 2, and also, all he said was anything is possible, and he was right. Anything is possible, including drafting Stroud, the guy that we all wanted to get, and Anderson as well. That was the anything is possible part. What wasn't anything is possible was, the logical part is to take a really good quarterback, arguably the best passing quarterback in this draft and probably in the last couple of drafts too, in C.J. Stroud. So I thought what was interesting was then when the guys came here on Friday and C.J. and Will met with the media, it was as packed a house as I've ever seen, guys. I mean, I've never seen one like that. And I know D'Amico Ryans was the only other time it was like that, and I was at the Senior Bowl, so I missed that one. But they could not have been better. I mean, podium. I mean, they were fantastic. They had personality. They were, as Will liked to say, they were very intentional with their comments. They were really good with the media. They laughed. I walked out of there and I turned to Mark Vandermeer, the voice of Texans. I was like, I get it. I get why the Texans made these 2 selections. I get it. These guys are going to be the faces of the franchise for a long time. And I was very, very happy that all of that was just a smokescreen and that everybody was wrong about it. And the actual logical answer of C.J. Stroud hit them right in the face because I think he is going to be the future of this franchise for a long time.
And Will Anderson is a cornerstone on the defense for D'Amico Ryans coming out of Alabama, and both are alphas, both are leaders, and we'll see. That's what the draft is about, because this felt like more not just a draft for the Texans, but with the hiring of D'Amico Ryans and these picks and that bold move, it was a rebrand of the team, right? It's a rebrand of what they are, and it gives the fans hope, I think, that there is a future without Deshaun Watson now. What about the picks? Juice Scruggs from Penn State, the center at 62, and Tank Dell. I know you like him a lot at 69 out of Houston, one of the quickest players in the draft, electric with his route running, and really just an explosive player. But they took him over Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee, which a lot of people questioned. What were your thoughts on Scruggs and Dell?
Had they taken a different receiver in front of Jalen Hyatt, I probably would have been, okay. I mean, I get it. I'm with the Texans. I'm going to be happy about it. It's a receiver, and everybody loves sexy receivers. But the fact that it was Tank Dell, that really got me excited. And I know that the Texans sent over a contingent to their pro day. I know Frank Ross, special teams coach. I saw him in the cafeteria afterwards. And, Frank's always, it's funny because Frank will put on coach mode, and then all of a sudden it's like, Frank, it's me, John, you talk to me. And then he talks to me like, oh, yeah, it's about the team, it's about this. And he looked at me and goes, yeah, but he's fun. I was like, yeah, he's fun. So special teams are excited. I know that our offensive staff has to be thrilled. There weren't many receivers that I would have been really excited over Jalen Hyatt because I had Jalen Hyatt at number 31 overall. I just felt like the speed quotient was something we needed. But what also we needed was somebody that could get the ball in his hands, and you knew the whole stadium's going to stand up when that joker gets his hands on the football. Tank Dell is going to set this thing off. The very first game that he played was actually right here in Energy Stadium. I'll never forget, I was standing in the end zone. I was talking to Dana Holgerson and Andre Ware, and I know both of them really, really well. And so, Dre had to go up and do things for the broadcast, and Dana and I keep talking, and Dana hits me and points at him and looks like this kid's in elementary school, and he goes, John, that's the most electrifying play I've ever coached.
Wow.
And I said, what? That guy, number one? That's your ball boy? He goes, nope. He's like, just watch. First drive of the game, he runs a post route by everybody and scored right in front of me. And I thought, oh, okay, Dana, you got this one right. Now, there are a couple of centers that I actually liked probably before Juice Scruggs, but I understood why Scruggs made sense for this team. And maybe he moves to guard. I don't know. There's an athleticism and some upper body strength, a lot of power and torque that he's got that I can understand why this fits. Very agile. He can move. I would love to see him play center. I did not see him get moved backwards a lot, whether it's zone, gap scheme, whatever, double teams. He's really good. So it was a little bit higher than I would have had him, but why he fit right there at center, probably a little bit higher in the second round, but man, I'll take it. We needed a center. And so I didn't mind overpaying a little bit, going up a little bit higher and getting a guy like Juice Scruggs. I thought that was a good pick, solid pick too.
Yeah, he'll have to watch his hands because he's a taller guy. He's got to be careful a little bit because he gets his hands out there. But when he gets you and he got you locked down, man, he goes for the pancake a lot.
He's a physical player, and they need some of that. And they've upgraded their offensive line. I mean, Tunsil and Howard on the edges, but they brought in Shaq Mason. They drafted Kenyon Green out of A&M last year. And now they take two centers, Juice Scruggs and then Jarrett Patterson out of Notre Dame, who was a tremendous player at Notre Dame in the middle. So some options there. Real quick, John, Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State. We saw him a lot in the Big 12. I thought he's a really good player. The Texans get him at 205. That might be one of those sleeper steals you talk about down the road. Xavier Hutchinson is a really quality wide receiver with some size to him.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was at the Senior Bowl, and I'm watching Hutchinson, I was curious to see him, and I just kind of thought, it's all right, but I didn't think he had a great week. And the Senior Bowl is kind of tough too in some cases. Like nobody covered Tank Dell just because Tank made everybody miss. But if you're a little bit bigger guy, a lot of times it's like a brawl. I mean, those DBs are getting away with murder. And so you really just don't have an opportunity if you're not like Tank, who could just shake everybody. And all these slot receivers just shook everybody. And Jaden Reed did the same thing, Trey Tucker. Those guys were, and Tank Dell, they were all top 100 picks because it's hard to cover slot guys. Those safeties can't cover anybody in the Senior Bowl. The corners are just mauling guys. So I go to the combine. I got a buddy of mine, Fran Duffy, who does great stuff for the Philadelphia Eagles. And we're kind of just chatting and talking about guys that we like. We do this every year. And he got to Hutchinson. And before I could say anything, he's like, oh, I love that guy. And I was like, you do? And he goes, oh, yeah. I was like, okay, well, I trust Fran. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go back. So I got 3 games from our film department at Iowa State. I just started watching him again, and I was like, man, I missed the boat at the Senior Bowl. I like this guy a lot. And what it struck me as, and I always try and compare to like baseball, he struck me like a pitcher who didn't have that 99, 100-mile-an-hour fastball, but he threw 91, 92. He painted black. He controlled the corners. Really good pitch selection, good solid curveball, good slider, had 3 or 4 good pitches and could just manage the game. Wasn't going to blow anybody away, but all of a sudden you look up and he's thrown 7 1/3. He's given up 4 hits, walked 1, and he's kept you in a game giving up 1 run. And you're like, man, he didn't blow anybody away. It wasn't the sexiest thing, but man, he's effective and really, really good. And the one thing I kept coming back to was how well he worked his craft, the craft of being a receiver, which is maybe why it made me think of pitching.
Yeah.
So when I had forgotten, and when you get to day 3, and I'm on the radio for 16 hours, I'm not tracking, or I can't track every pick. I'm trying to. But our producer who was telling us who the picks were was like, hey, this looks like it's going to be Xavier Hutchinson. I look at him like, wait, he's not off the board yet? I'm like, we're at 205. He's like, yeah, it looks like Xavier Hutchinson. I'm like, holy cow. I can't believe he's still on the board at 205. So I think that's a huge win. I think it's one of the better day 3 picks the Texans have made. And I think he's going to come in and make some noise, whether he's the 3 or 4 receiver on his team. He's going to find a way, as he did at Iowa State. And I think we're really going to like him here in Houston for sure.
Johnny, appreciate it. Good overview of the Texans draft with Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud as cornerstones and the move to make it. Juice Scruggs in the middle of the round. Dylan Horton from TCU, another edge to come in for D'Amico's defense. And that's where the Texans are headed. Thank you, Johnny.
Thanks, John.
You got it, boys. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, we'll recap the Cowboys draft coming up as well because I thought it was solid in key spots. We'll also get back into that debate. Cowboys, Eagles, and Niners. Did the Cowboys or the Eagles even separate from those two even more over the weekend? That's coming. But get your blitz ready. 447-3776. First Craig Way. No games, just gossip. You know it's ahead of your blitz, so load it up. 447-3776. Also, after the top of the hour, got a big concert announcement. How about that, Buck? We're breaking news for concerts that are coming to town. This is a big one. I think a lot of our audience is going to be excited about it. I'm excited about it. We'll give you that. We can't break the news until after 9 o'clock, though, we've been told. Sworn to silence, pinky swear, that whole thing, you know? Can't do it. Not till after 9.
Okay.
But load up the blitz. We'll tell you what concerts coming to Austin in the fall.
Can I start singing the songs?
You'll know some of the songs.
I guarantee
it's a double bill, and it's a killer one. All right, Salacious Gossip, Buck. Do you know that, Brian, when I told you back when we first started this show that I would walk to Dallas if the Cowboys won the Super Bowl as a general manager?
How you feeling about
Jerry
that after the draft?
Still feeling good. Still feeling good. I'm not nervous. Haven't been the whole time. Also, remember when I used to tell you I was going to live to be 120? No,
yes,
I didn't say
you've
that.
been preparing. You said you were preparing.
I didn't say I'm guaranteed. I can't, but I think I need to prepare financially, health-wise, employment-wise, to live to be 120 because I just think you have to think like that because medical advances. Here it is, Buck. Researchers at UC San Diego have discovered a new gene therapy that slows down aging. They tried it on yeast cells. Cells lived 82% longer. They believe if this is advanced, people could live longer and healthy people could live to be 180 in the not-too-distant future. 180! Who wants to live for 180 years?
No thanks.
No thanks. Yeah, well, we'll keep an eye on that. Also, from the salacious gossip category, do you like on your cars? Because Ty just got a new car. Ty went up to Dallas this weekend, went to the Texas TCU game on Friday night, or Saturday night, and your grandma hooked you up with a ride, right?
He is hooked.
Oh yeah,
nice,
feeling good.
Way to go, Grandma. Well, are you a fan of the touch screens on your car, like the new technology of touch screens? Well, it turns out that Slate.com did a big article that car companies are ditching the touch screens and bringing back buttons and knobs because people want them. People like the buttons and the knobs, not the touch screen. I'm kind of with them on that. They're fancy looking, but I like the old school knobs and buttons as much to the touch screen to do everything.
Hit the wrong thing with the touch screen, huh?
And then it gets all goopy, your fingerprints are all over the thing. Got to clean the screen. So, it says they're bringing it back.
Put your hands in the French fries.
Hey, this isn't any good. Spirit Airlines. There's a video, because everybody's got video today, of a Spirit airline worker duct taping a plane's engine back together. The hell are we doing?
Spirit?
I'm a fan of duct tape and Gorilla Tape like everybody else, but how about if you're looking out the window and you got your camera and this dude's putting duct tape on the engine?
No.
Then we're going to take off. Hell to the no.
No.
Can't be doing that.
Flight delayed. Buck's gone crazy inside. No, we're not doing that.
If you saw that from your seat, would you like I'm getting off. Get me off this plane.
Oh, I would. I would definitely. Yeah, I'd say, excuse me, please.
Break the knob, or break the engine or fix the engine with duct tape like that.
No.
Somebody said break the knob. Okay, let's get to your blitz because we're running out of time in the hour.
The Bucky and E Blitz.
Vikings to the Super Bowl. First blitzer, you're up.
Kirk Cousins.
This is Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and I was right on schedule at the tail end of that 2023 NFL draft selecting Deuce Vaughn, per se. It was obvious if I was to have a proper three-ring circus, I had to have me a midget.
Oh, gee, next blitzer. You're up. You're up.
Run gunner strikes again. Whoever's coaching this outfield for Texas gets a raise. And another thing, I would like to offer my services to console Camilla McKay. Tell her that life isn't fair and the Bruins really do suck.
Oh, next.
Tom McKay's daughter taking it on the blitz.
Next blitzer, you're up.
So Bucky Luther King had a dream. Did your wife make you change those sheets afterwards?
No. DeMarvian dream.
All right, there we go. Short blitz today because we went along with John Harris, but good stuff. And Craig Way had a great report there with Porter Brown throwing out the runner at the plate to end the ball game. Longhorns go for the sweep today, and it's must-listen radio at 1 o'clock if you can hear it on AM 1260 or 101.9. Also on the Horn app, Tanner Witt makes his return to the mound. Tommy John surgery last year. He's come all the way back. No hurdles or no roadblocks that he's hit so far or setbacks in his recovery. And he's going to start the game. David Pierce told us last week he'll get an inning. He will be on a pitch count, but exciting jolt of optimism. How about you get Tanner Witt back and maybe sweep the Horned Frogs today? That would be a lot of fun. So we'll hit that. We'll also get back to the NFL draft for the Cowboys and your favorite team. It's B&E with you on a busy Monday. Good, bad, and ugly on 104.9, 101.9, AM 1260. Streaming always on the Horn app, on your smart speaker, and at hornfm.com. What a weekend that we're recapping it with you here on B&E. If you've been with us all morning, we appreciate that. If you're just jumping in, welcome. Final hour of 4 here on B&E. Obviously, recapping the NBA draft. 5 Longhorns drafted over the 3 days, including Roschon Johnson to the Bears, early 4th round, DeMarvion Overshown to your Dallas Cowboys with pick 90 overall. Big 12, Buck, had 40 players drafted. If you count the 4 schools coming in, Houston and BYU and Cincinnati, 40 Big 12 kids taken. 30 kids from the state of Texas drafted over the weekend, including 3 of the local products that we've talked about, Deuce Vaughn and Elijah Higgins. O'Shawn Mathis, all selected. Congratulations to those young guys. Opportunity now. Dreams come true.
Yep.
With those phone calls over the weekend. Thought that was really cool. Also, Buck, the Texas baseball team going for a sweep today. We mentioned Tanner Witt to start today. Can I mention, on a good side, that LeBaron Johnson Jr. and what he did yesterday? That dude, man, when he is going, he is filthy. He was outstanding for Texas yesterday in that win. They win at 3-2, but he was a big part of it. We know Porter Brown threw out the base runner at the plate to preserve the win and close the game down. But DJ Burke started the game, pitched 2 innings, gave up 3 innings, gave up two innings, gave up 2 runs. Then LeBaron Johnson, LBJ, came in and pitched 6 1/3 innings, 3 hits, no runs allowed, through 85 pitches. He was outstanding. I mean, it's one of those. This Texas baseball team has been frustrating. They're 30-15. But it's one of those, man, if you get Tanner Witt back and he can emerge here through the month of May and work that arm strength back to go with Lucas Gordon, and you get a guy like LBJ to step to the front and give you, a top-end starter, which it feels like he can be with the rest of the pitching staff, that makes his team pretty formidable. But LBJ, man, putting on a show yesterday in TCU and holding that game right where it was so the Longhorns could get the game winner and get that ball game to win the series. Now they'll play tonight. By the way, the team in the Big 12 to watch now is West Virginia. Really,
the Morgantowners. I saw that.
They went into Waco over the weekend and swept the Baylor Bears, and they are sitting atop the Big 12. I think they're 11-4 now in the Big 12. Texas is 10-7. Longhorns still get a 3-game series with West Virginia.
That's at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, last series of the year here in Austin. So we'll see if that can become a crucial series. Longhorns trying to shake off that sweep at the hands of Oklahoma this
and
past
is that
weekend.
the last time they play each other then?
No, they'll remember.
Will they?
Spring sports will play in the SEC again
next
year. Yeah.
Okay.
Got one more year with the Big 12. One full year. Like the SEC move will begin summer of 24. So it'll start with the football and the fall sports. But yes, next year they will also be a Big 12 team. But so that came down. Draft. We had a couple of Game 7s, 3 Game 7s yesterday, which were a lot of fun. In the NHL, the Boston Bruins took it on the chin. What a brutal way to end an historic season. That has led us to the conversation about best team in all team sports, the best team never to win the whole championship, to be that good in the regular season and not finish it. They joined that because they went 65-12-5. It's brutal, Buck, when a team that you've got people on the blitz hitting Camilla McKay.
Wow.
Tom McKay's daughter, because she gets on that commercial and talks about her Bruins. Well, they went out. Now, New England also claims one of the best teams never to win it, and that was the 08 Patriots. 07-08 Patriots that got to 18-0, and then
Giants.
David Tyree and the Eli Manning and the Giants.
Tom Coughlin got him.
Well, we know what Tom Brady's legacy already is, but think about if Eli didn't beat him twice in Super Bowls in close games with miracle catches. I mean, Brady would have even a greater resume, which is hard to believe. Speaking of resumes, how about Steph Curry? 50 in a Game 7. He's in the debate now as all-time best point guard in league history. Look, he already was. But when he does things like yesterday in a closeout on-the-road game at Sacramento after the Warriors had coughed up Game 6 at home and looked like, oh, man, Sacramento's going to steal this series going back into Sacramento.
Not so fast there, Sacramento.
And we said it earlier, but you kind of knew early. Steph had that look in his eye. This is going to be a long day. Long day. Also, it happened already, but earlier in the day. But how about the Miami Heat? This team is all of a sudden Jimmy Butler. I know their Tyler Hero's out, but they already went through Milwaukee, the team with the best record, and now they're a game up on the Knicks with a road win. This is becoming the team nobody wants to play, it feels like, in the Eastern Conference. But good one tonight, Buck. I know you'll be watching Boston and Philly. Celtics and 76ers.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Game 1 of that series. Those two cities don't like
Joel
each other.
Embiid's been sitting around for 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're waiting. They should be fresh. Well, James Harden, he could have gotten some strip club time in. You know what I'm saying? Oh, sorry. Sorry, James. Remembering old things with James. But yeah, really for the Sixers right now, it's about Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, yeah.
That backcourt, James Harden is just a complimentary piece to what they do with
What
Joel.
do you mean? Big Game James has got it going on now.
Yeah, it's Big Game Butler. Big Game playoff Jimmy Butler. It's not Big Game James.
No?
Well, ask Rockets fans, Brooklyn Nets fans. I mean, come on. Big game for sure. But so that was a big part of the weekend. Texas Rangers took 3 out of 4 from your Yankees after you declared them dead on arrival after game 1.
I did after game 1. Yeah.
Ty, did you take in a Rangers game while you're up in the Metro?
No, that was my original plan when I decided I was going up this weekend, but the Texas TCU game took priority over the Rangers.
That was the night game at 6:00. So yeah, Longhorns took that ball game. Lucas Gordon, by the way, is part of the good. That dude's been the best starter in the Big 12, most consistent player in the Big 12 at that position. He has given the Longhorns a chance to win every single ball game. As we said, he's been just lights out on Friday night. And the 2 games the Longhorns didn't win that he started, they led or were tied when he left the ball game. So gave the Longhorns a chance. He was tremendous. And then yesterday we mentioned LBJ and the throw out at home. But the Rangers, though, we kind of put a date on it. May 1st. Actually, it was April 29th. When did the Rangers first put Jacob deGrom on the injured list?
Jeez.
That came over the weekend. Injured list on his right forearm tightness.
Yeah.
Right forearm tightness.
See you after the 4th of July. Come on, DeGrom.
How much did they give him? Ty, what's the investment in DeGrom? It's big. He's 34. You're going to be very careful with that big ticket investment, are we not? Yes. Now, down in Houston, the Astros almost got swept by the Phillies. Cody Clemens was jacking home runs over the weekend in the World Series rematch down at Minute Maid Park. And they got the win last night, though, 4-3. And a big part of it was Jose Urquidy, who had to leave that game in the 6th inning with shoulder soreness. That's never good. Jose's been a workhorse for the Astros. So they're already down Lance McCullers. He should be coming back here at some point, but that would not be a good piece of news. So we'll keep an eye on both of those injuries for the Rangers and the Astros. By the way, don't we talk about the Austin FC struggling out of the gate here? They're just bad right now in soccer. They played to a 2-2 draw with San Jose over the weekend. They have not won a match in quite a while now. But don't sleep on the Round Rock Express out of Del Diamond. They beat Sacramento again yesterday, Buck. They're 18-6.
Ooh.
Like, this is a really good ball club. We talked about it with the Rangers, all the acquisitions they made in the offseason, kind of putting a cap on some of their better young players being able to move up, where there were going to be open spots. The Rangers filled them through free agency and trades, especially on the pitching staff. Well, gosh, I mean, they've that team's really good out at the Del Diamond. So get a chance, get out there and see them here as the spring turns to summer. But last thing, Buck, on a really bad, the ugliest thing is we haven't talked about this morning because there's been so much to talk about. The Ron Holland defection from the Longhorn basketball program. This was an absolute. The only description is an absolute just punch in the gut for Rodney Terry and the Longhorns. Came down on Friday. Ron Holland, the 5-star forward from Duncanville, reopened his recruitment. Said he had committed. He signed at Texas. He's already, he's signed to play here, but he says he's reopening the recruitment. Other schools are coming after him now. He says Texas will still be in strong consideration, but he wants to be re-recruited.
No, this will be really hurt if he's being re-recruited by colleges and he's not running off to the pros. That's the one that'll really hurt.
Yes, if he goes to Arkansas.
Yes, or anywhere.
But that
anywhere
is,
but here.
And the uncertainty of what his plan is, because there's, these guys all have people giving them advice and you should do this, and that Ron Holland may consider going to the G League.
I mean, I understand if it's a money thing.
Sure.
I don't understand if it's a school thing.
Yeah, that will be frustrating if it's a different school. And it's all uncertain now. He just says he's reopening his recruitment. And Arkansas is a team that's talking. Of course, everybody's going to call him. I mean, he's a 5-star player.
Sure.
And was seen as a walk-in starter on the Longhorn front line. So
get in there and get him.
Yeah, that's a brutal blow for Rodney Terry. Now,
yeah, that just seemed like something that just came out of nowhere, too. I mean, that's a long time to hold a kid,
too. The only thing I saw on it, I read a lot, Longhorn-centric sites and things, and we listen to a lot. The day that A.J. Johnson, the kid from L.A., decommitted, I said on the air, at least Ron Holland is still solid. Somebody texted and says, not so fast on Ron Holland. I don't know if that was just one of our texters being a wise guy, but it became prophetic.
I'll take it at that.
It became prophetic, obviously, and that's – I mean, the Longhorns are excited about Caden Shedrick coming in, Max Asmus coming in. Got that commitment last week, which was huge.
Need some more bodies, though.
They do. I mean, they need a lot more bodies.
Can't fill out a roster right now.
They expect Tyrese Hunter to return from his draft NBA draft flirtation. Same with potentially Dylan Mitchell. Well, Dylan Mitchell now becomes a big name here because I was told last week on the heels of the Max Asmus commitment and Caden Shedrick, the big man from Virginia, that good friend of mine who's tied to the program was hearing that they're feeling all right about Dylan Mitchell, that maybe Dylan Mitchell's not going to get the draft love he was hoping for and that he may return and he plans to play at Texas if he does. Well, again, Dylan Mitchell and Ron Holland play a similar position. They're similar body types. You know, I'm not saying it's makes the Ron Holland news any less crushing. Same time, Dylan Mitchell would be a guy that you could put back into your front line and hopefully.
Sure, you're expecting him to be better anyway.
Yeah, with the advice from the NBA, further develop your offensive game. The Longhorns can make him more of a focal point of their offense and run some plays through him, which they didn't do last year. Dylan Mitchell becomes a big one, and the Longhorns are hosting 2 more portal players this week.
Hunter is the guy for me that's most important, and I'm not buying until I see it, until I feel it, till he's here.
Yeah, well,
he's the guy. He's the guy for me.
To me, it feels just like the Marcus Carr thing. Marcus Carr was not going to get a first or second round draft grade from the NBA, and I don't think Tyrese Hunter will. So, and if you're not getting a grade where they're telling you you're going to be drafted over the 2 rounds,
why wouldn't you come back and play here? Well, I mean, you can go because you can go back and play a lot of places.
Sure.
Do you think they go do you think they start recruiting new freshmen at this point for next year? Or is this going to be no freshmen coming in?
Well, I mean, it makes it difficult, right? If both players entered the portal, or both players are going to the G League that you recruited this year, you've already had Arterial Morris transferred out. He was part of your recruiting class last year. Rowan Brumbaugh transferred out already, and Arterial Morris, by the way, committed to play at Kansas after visiting the Jayhawks. So now you're going to have to play Arterial Morris in Big 12 play the next 2 seasons. No, it's not ideal, but everything we've heard on Tyrese Hunter is he's already told Rodney Terry if he's not going to the draft, he's coming back to Texas. He'll be back here if he's not in the NBA draft, and I don't think he's going to get the grade. He's not going to be told, hey, we're going to draft you. And that's what you're waiting on with Dylan Mitchell. But the Longhorns are going to host 2 more portal players this week. There's a kid from UTEP who they like, and we've talked about the kid at UT Arlington who was out of the Metroplex and was the WAC freshman of the year in his 1 year at UTA. So he's a guy to keep an eye on too. Yeah, but they got to fill a roster. I mean, they're going to have to, and the fluidity of a college basketball roster has to just be maddening for a coach. I mean, you don't know. I mean, remember Longhorns didn't get the commitment from Jabari Rice until summer last year.
Yeah, it's just a long time. I mean, for when you have a high school kid and you hold them that long, and then a season goes through and then the portal starts and people start transferring into a school where you were going to go. I mean, it just gets to be. That's a lot to hold on to right there.
I know. I mean,
plus he's a talented enough guy to be possible lottery pick.
We know it's an uncertain time in college athletics. We had the conversation all last week about Deion Sanders essentially cutting guys and telling them to get gone, which we've never seen before. And obviously a lot of these moves that we're seeing now, the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. It can be a great thing, but it also players have that freedom to change their mind. And we'll talk on the show tomorrow. We'll get Jerry Hamilton on the show from Inside Texas. He'll be locked in on that Ron Holland situation because Jerry covers college football recruiting, but also the basketball recruiting really well. So he'll have good sources within the Holland recruitment and the school and the family and what's going on up there with Ron Holland out of Duncanville. Because I guess there's still some optimism he could commit back to Texas.
Well, I mean, if he says he's still interested in Texas, you just start fighting now.
Yeah, for sure. And, does he want commitments of playing time and things of that nature? We'll talk to Jerry about that tomorrow. Rodney Terry from a really good week with 2 commitments through the portal to the gut punch on Friday that Ron Holland is reopening that recruitment. So part of the good, the bad, and the ugly from the weekend for the Longhorns and for all of the sports landscape. Cowboys, where are we on this Cowboys draft? Ty, what's your overall thought? Were you happy, pleased, underwhelmed? What's the adjective you would put on the Cowboys selections?
I'm happy. I mean, they got players at all the positions that I thought they needed to look at. Especially, I mean, the more time that has passed since this Mozzie Smith pick, I like it more and more. Just watching some of his tape, because he wasn't one of those guys I was really even looking at in that first round for them. But man, he's an athletic beast, and I think he should really help shore up the run defense next year because that was my biggest issue going into the offseason.
Yeah, he is such a power at the middle. I don't like the second-round pick at 58, the Schoonmaker pick, the tight end from Michigan, but the Cowboys were clearly going to take a tight end early in this draft. They almost took Dalton Kincaid out of Utah in the first round before the Bills traded ahead of them. So they were going to get one, and there was a run on tight ends. We told you this was a deep class. And go back to the free agent period when guys like Dalton Schultz didn't get much of a sniff in free agency because teams knew the draft board was deep with tight ends. Cowboys, who made him their franchise player the year before, let Dalton Schultz walk down to Houston on a 1-year deal. But Schoonmaker seemed early, but they liked the player, they liked the traits. I did make the note, Buck, that while the Cowboys are gobbling up Michigan players, Philadelphia is gobbling up Georgia players.
Yes.
I'd rather you be taking the Georgia players.
For sure.
And the reason it's of note is that when the Cowboys drafted at 26, they could have taken Nolan Smith, the pass rusher from Georgia. And then at 58, they could have taken Darnell Washington, the tight end from Georgia, the big 6'7" monster. He went to Pittsburgh later in the second round. So, you're going Michigan guys who you liked. Your rival in the division are going Philadelphia. They're taking Eagles guys. They're taking Georgia.
Taking Georgia guys. How's that working out?
As they're now calling them in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Bird Dogs.
Wow.
Philadelphia Bird Dogs. That's scary to me because if you're a Cowboys fan and you're in the NFC, that was a great defense. That 2021 Georgia defense on par with the best college football defenses in the last 25 years. They allowed 2.6 yards rushing. Remember, they dominated. Then Alabama beat them in the championship game. Then they turned around and suffocated and choked out Alabama to win the national championship.
Oh, no, they're preparing for just not only next year, but for the future way down the line with those young guys.
It's a nice transition. And you're bringing in, 5 guys on your defense that know each other really well, right?
Mm-hmm.
They played together already. They won championships together. That has to be an aspect of camaraderie there.
Is that always a good thing, though?
Well,
especially Jalen Carter, who's, kind of already got into some big trouble with his teammates.
Well, they're in
with
the pros now.
Teammates?
They're trying to win. Now they're trying to win a Super Bowl.
I got to think there's familiarity and comfortability that, hey, I know Nolan Smith. Hey, look, who's there? There's Jordan Davis.
And those guys aren't going to be afraid to tell him if you're jacking around. Right. They're going to be able to tell him. They've known him a long time.
Well, maturity is going to be the only issue with Jalen Carter, who might have been pound for pound the best player in this draft, and the Eagles got him at 9. Then you take Nolan Smith, who also slid for a lot of teams who had them high on a board. He's the freak edge rusher who got hurt this year, so we didn't get to see him when it mattered
Keely
most.
Ringo will end up being a safety by the time they're done with him.
Well, and Keely Ringo at corner, potentially safety down the road, just the flat-out speed. But, man, impactful. This is the guts of the defense that won 2 national championships. And the 2001 defense was better than this year's. So they already had 2 of those. Nakobe Dean was kind of the heart and soul at linebacker. They drafted him last year. Jordan Davis, and now 3 more this year. And they trade for DeAndre Swift. Come on. Last year on draft weekend, it was A.J. Brown in the first round. This time they bring in a really good running back who, again, he doesn't have to be a feature running back in Philadelphia. Nope. He's a piece of what they do, but DeAndre Swift is an upgrade from Miles Sanders, without a doubt. Ty, you're rolling your eyes. You don't think DeAndre Swift is an upgrade from Miles Sanders?
No, he's constantly hurt or suspended, or I don't know. I just don't. I think if Detroit, an up-and-coming team like that does like to run the ball, I realize they've drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, but if you're willing to get rid of him for that price on draft night, I don't think he's going to have a Miles Sanders type impact on that offense next year. I think Kenneth Gainwell's going to be the lead back.
Well, I think he's an upgrade from Miles
Sanders. You think Gainwell? I never thought they would like him for
Boston Scott's still there. They signed Rashad Penny.
I never thought of them having him as that guy with all those carries.
He was the lead back in the Super Bowl. He had 20 carries.
It's pretty clear.
In a game, for the season, he was either lead. He wasn't a lead ball carrier.
No.
Well, if you go back to his 2 years ago stats, he was an elite player, DeAndre Swift, receiving out of the backfield. He's a lot like Bijan. He's just, he was a first-round draft pick when he came out of Georgia. It's pretty clear to me that Dan Campbell has a philosophy and a way he wants to play. And, the fact that they signed David Montgomery away from the Bears in free agency and then drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, that's their direction at running back.
Yeah, they're about to load Jahmyr Gibbs up with a lot of carries.
And a lot of catches.
And tons of catches.
Well, and part of the DeAndre Swift thing is he was going into the last year of his deal, and he was starting to ask for more money.
Sure.
Which the Eagles were what they gave up to get him. The Eagles are going to say, look, you can go be a free agent. You play here for a year, help us win a Super Bowl, play for your contract, and then we're not going to franchise tag you. You go ahead and hit that market, and we'll
find another guy.
We'll find another guy, but you can put up big numbers in this offense playing next to Jalen Hurts. I like the move for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll take your thoughts on that. I like the moves the Eagles made. I thought they separated further from the Cowboys and the Niners in the NFC.
Well, once the Cowboys get Zeke back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Come on.
Zeke.
Nobody's really talking about that but you.
Well,
by the
Jerry
way.
was asked about it, and he said the door is not closed on
Oh, is that what he said? The door is not closed?
Right. So it could happen.
Those workout videos will be coming in soon.
Oh, my God, yes. You know who's going to get those carries? That little guy is going to get all those carries that Zeke was going to get.
And on the Texans, we talked to John Harris last hour. I mean, the draft, Dane Brugler at theathletic.com puts out that beast athletic guide, the draft guide, which is phenomenal. He has the Eagles with the number 1 draft of the weekend. He's got the
Seattle.
He's got the Colts number 2 because he had a high. He really likes the potential of Anthony Richardson, and Anthony Richardson going to play for Shane Steichen is interesting. Steichen just came from Philadelphia, where he helped develop Jalen Hurts, and that offense. They're going to go a very similar route. He also was in with the Chargers when Justin Herbert was drafted, so he's got experience developing young quarterbacks. And obviously Anthony Richardson is a very raw prospect at this point, but he likes their draft, not just Richardson, but overall. They got good value up and down, the Indianapolis Colts did. And then the Texans, Dane Brugler has the Texans ranked 3rd. And I thought John Harris put this well. Yes, the Texans gave up a lot to move back up to take Will Anderson, but as John explained it, they gave up this year's number 33 and next year's number 1 for the ability to take both, right? It was not just the one. It was about being able to come out of this draft with both guys. And yes, it was a lot, but they needed a quarterback, but they loved Will Anderson. And to combine them to have a face of the franchise on both sides of the ball now with a new head coach was worth it. Now, look, if we get to next year and the Texans that's a top 5 pick that they just gave to Arizona, and Arizona's sitting with the 1 pick and the 4 pick, which could be because they may have the worst year, the Arizona Cardinals, with no Kyler Murray this year. They could have 2 really high picks, which obviously we know next year is Caleb Williams, Drake May, potentially Quinn Ewers, and others. So Marvin Harrison Jr. will be a part of next year's draft at wide receiver, who's going to be an elite prospect. So, did they give up a lot? Yes, but the Texans would tell you, we have our new coach. We now have our quarterback of the future, and we took a game wrecker on the defensive side of the ball who our defensive coordinator, head coach loves, who can become the face. And that's why I said with John, this wasn't a draft move. This was a rebranding of the team. This was what the Texans were, and now we're moving forward with a new coach, a new quarterback, a new defensive star.
And over 2 years, we got 2 nice defensive pieces.
And it's true, they still have their number 1 from next year with the Browns, right? The Browns pick still belongs to Houston next year. And they also picked up a 4th-round pick in this draft in that trade, which they drafted TCU's Dylan Horton in the 4th round, pretty close to where Roshan Johnson was picked. The Texans took Dylan Horton, who led the Big 12 in sacks last year, coming off the edge, and stunting in there for Sonny Dykes and company. So I think they liked the idea of getting Will Anderson and Dylan Horton in that trade, and they still keep a number 1 next year with the Browns. So take your thoughts. It's everybody's opinion the Monday after. We won't know the real impact of these picks for several years, but always good conversation. We'll pick up your favorite picks for your favorite team coming back on B&E.
It's Bucky and Erin.
All right, back on our salacious gossip. We talked about duct tape on a plane engine. Several aviation experts, which I knew we have, aviation experts who listen to our show, have emailed and texted to say, hey, that's okay. They have that tape is
aluminum-based,
and is used all over the airline industry to tape engines.
And race cars.
Race cars. But
if I see you out there with a roll of tape, I'm not getting back.
I'm going to get another plane.
I don't care what base it is.
Well, don't panic.
Especially if it's up near the wing.
Hey, can we break some big concert news? Which is funny because we couldn't break it until after 9 o'clock, but it was broken
before that
by Live Nation at 8 o'clock. I got the email at 8, but this is somewhat breaking news because maybe you haven't heard of it. But our friends over at Live Nation and the Moody Center have announced this morning, Buck. How about this? This is big time. Aerosmith announcing their final tour ever. Peace out.
Peace out?
Rock icon history, their last run. That is right, and they're coming with the Black Crowes, which is going to be an incredible concert. Steven Tyler, Chris Robinson, and the Black Crowes. It's the farewell tour after 50 years, 10 world tours, and playing for over 100 million fans. Time for one last go. Steven Tyler, who likes him young. Oop, did I say that? And Aerosmith, along with the Black Crowes, coming to the Moody Center October 23rd.
Can they bring Jimmy Lee Buffett along with them? Is that last tour? No?
Those teams aren't even the same planet together. What are you talking about, Jimmy Buffett? No, Aerosmith. You went to Boston College. Wasn't Aerosmith a big deal and blowing up?
Yes, they were in Boston.
When you were up there?
Absolutely.
But yes, I mean, the tickets will go on sale Friday at 10 a.m., and if you listen tomorrow to this show and this station...
You say Carly Simon was blowing up? Did you say that?
Blowing somebody. Not me. Somebody in this room.
Not her husband.
Back in the day.
Oh.
Well, she might have been doing that too.
Yeah.
Just not that particular time with the Bucks.
So they are done, huh?
Yeah, Aerosmith, 50th anniversary tour. They're going to let it rip. So the tickets go on sale on Friday, Cinco de Mayo at 10 in the morning. But if you listen to this show and this station tomorrow, your chance to win tickets. Win tickets before you can buy them. We like to say, get on in there and get on in there. I'm in for that because I love the Black Crowes. And I love, Aerosmith plays hit after hit, and Steven Tyler can still bring it, without a doubt.
Rodney from Revved Up Sports, of course, called us and says, hey, it's called Bearer's Bond.
Bearer Bond?
I'm still not. It doesn't matter what it's called.
Yeah, Rodney's the race car guy. He knows these things.
Race got canceled this weekend.
What the heck happened?
Rained out.
Tony Finau won in Mexico, Buck.
That ain't right.
Tony Finau.
He broke the curse. He's been winning recently, right?
He's got 4 wins.
He's got a few wins this year.
Yes. He's on fire.
On fire.
His putter is on fire.
He's a hell of a player. Now, his next step is going to win a major, right? I mean,
yes.
You've seen John Rahm now win a Masters on top of his U.S. Open, and he needs to finish a major. But feels like Tony Finau, it's only one of those guys, only a matter of time that he's going to.
It's like Xander Schauffele. It's only a matter of time. But Tony's been around longer than that.
So here's what's interesting about NFL draft grades. Okay, draft grades are silly, right? I love the draft. I'm a draft nerd. I geek out about it. I love watching it. I watch as much of it as I can. But I'm not big on the whole grade thing. There are picks I love. There are drafts that I thought really were strong, and that's fine. But the grade idea, I know websites and the media companies, they want their experts to do it and put a grade on it. But the grades are silly because, as we mentioned, the Cowboys were ranked 24th in Dane Brugler's rankings, 1 to 32. Pete Prisco at CBS had the Cowboys at an A. NFL.com said they had a B+. But no one knows. And I always cite this. So you remember the Legion of Boom, Seattle Seahawks team, Buck?
Right.
So in 2012, they had a draft that, if you go back to the draft analysis of it, was panned by everybody. Everybody. I mean, it was an F. I mean, I still have some copies of draft grades where worst draft we've ever seen. Well, in that draft, first 3 picks were Bruce Irvin, Bobby Wagner, Russell Wilson. Picks 15, 47, and 75. They also drafted Robert Turbin in that draft. But those 3 guys went on to become the heart and soul of the 2-time Super Bowl run there, right? The one that should have been 2 if they'd have given it to the beast mode. But Bobby Wagner was the heart and soul of the defense. Russell Wilson became the heart and soul of the offense. Pete Carroll. These are the things that are funny because the NFL.com today, Buck, has the Seattle Seahawks draft, last year's draft, not this year, but last year. they gave NFL.com, the league's own website, right, gave the Seahawks a C+ for their draft last year. But the Seahawks knocked it out of the park. They had 6 starters they drafted, including both their tackles, Charles Cross and Abram Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
They drafted Kenneth Walker. They drafted the kid Tariq Wooten out of UTSA, the Roadrunner, who was an all-rookie player.
Kobe Bryant out of Cincinnati.
Yeah, Kobe Bryant, the other corner opposite Sauce Gardner. I mean, they had 6 starters, and they had more players in that rookie class play more snaps than any other team. Yet, of course, the day after, the NFL.com gives them a C+. It doesn't. No one knows. No one knows. I mean, because the Cowboys, this kid Schoonmaker from Michigan is really good, and he replaces Dalton Schultz and goes along with Turd Ferguson at tight end. The Cowboys are going to be fine.
The old turd.
I like the Mozzie Smith. It's just, again, snap opinions. We don't
I just
know.
knew what was going to happen with the Texans. They were going to say, that's the guy we wanted the whole time. And that's fine because you're going to take either one, right?
But you keep saying that. That's not true. The Texans had Bryce Young graded higher than C.J. Stroud. They would have.
But John just said that this was their guy.
Well,
John just came on and said that C.J. Stroud was their guy the whole time.
They would not have taken C.J. Stroud over Bryce Young if they could have. He was their guy because the guy wasn't available. That's why they took C.J. Stroud. But they had a higher grade. Everybody.
But I'm just going to say, they're going to tell you that's the guy that we want.
Just because they say it doesn't mean it's true. I mean, there's the fact. The fact is they would have taken C.J. Stroud over Bryce Young or Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud if they could have. But they couldn't because they screwed up the end of the year. But either way. But, of course, they're going to say this is our guy because we couldn't have that guy.
That's right, because they all do that. Everyone does that when that happens eventually. They say, no, that's our guy.
You gotta back your quarterback.
Or you got to back your quarterback and your fans
but there's
by saying
no
yes.
doubt that if they had the first pick, they would have taken Bryce Young. No doubt. And every team in the league that had the first pick or someone would trade up would have taken Bryce Young because everybody had Bryce Young with a higher grade than C.J. Stroud. But C.J. Stroud was the next guy. The point of that is, Houston should have had that first pick. And think about the draft had they taken Bryce Young and traded back up with Arizona to take Will Anderson.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Because there is some doubt on C.J. We'll see. I mean, I think he is a tremendous pure passer. I think he has elite traits. But, if the cognition test has been accurate over time, then that'll be a problem. If he has a hard time reading complex defenses and making the right decision in real time and quick time, that becomes problematic. We see quarterbacks all the time.
It will take him time.
But,
But he is going to be thrown into the fire.
Sure. But, again, this says he was their guy at that spot. Yes. With the second pick, he was their guy. They had to take a quarterback.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. They were going to take either one, right? They just had to.
But they would have taken Bryce Young if they could have. I mean, that's the point of fact. Don't rewrite the history on that from the Texan side of things. If they could have, they would have taken Bryce Young. And thanks, Lovey. I think it's really cool, though, that all 3 of those quarterbacks not named Bryce Young are going to be in the same division now moving forward. I mean, the next several years will be pretty scintillating in the AFC South. You have Trevor Lawrence, who's the emerging star. Anthony Richardson's in Indianapolis. The Titans drafted Will Levis. And Houston with C.J. Stroud. So all the evaluation conversation we've had surrounding those players, should you take Anthony Richardson because he's such a raw prospect? Will Levis is better than C.J. Stroud. All those debates, it's going to play out because they're going to be in the same division. They're going to play each other twice a year, every year moving forward, which is kind of cool. And, they're all chasing Trevor Lawrence at this point with the Jacksonville Jags.
True.
As for Will Levis, we told you earlier, Mike Vrabel said, you know what? I mean, the Texans have said we expect C.J. Stroud to come in here and compete for the starting job immediately. Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts, has already said, essentially saying don't not think that Anthony Richardson could be our starter when the season begins. That's how you get better. So the owner is already speaking for the coach. So that seems like it could be happening. But, in Tennessee, they drafted Malik Willis out of Liberty last year in the 3rd round. This year they draft Will Levis. They still have Ryan Tannehill on the roster, who's been their starter. And Mike Vrabel said right now Will Levis is QB3. Like Ryan Tannehill is still our QB1. Malik Willis has earned the right to be QB2, and Will Levis comes in as the 3rd guy. But he can earn the right to move up that depth chart, which is
sure.
That's what a coach would say. The owner might say otherwise, right? And already put it out there. It says that division stinks. Well, it's the most winnable division in that very tough conference. So if you can take a big step forward in that division, the point of that is Trevor Lawrence is the standard bearer. If Houston got it right,
he is for sure.
And I think he's emerging into that conversation because we know that Trevor Lawrence got no coaching in year 1 with Urban Meyer, right? It was almost a lost year. He's even talked about how miserable that was. But last year took huge strides. They made the playoffs and gave the Chiefs a hell of a game in the first round of the playoffs there in Kansas City. And they should be better this year. I mean, they get Calvin Ridley, who they traded for last year, added to that offense. Their defense is young and aggressive. They're the best team in the division. But whichever team took the right quarterback, if Houston got C.J. Stroud right, they're going to be the team in the next couple of years challenging Jacksonville most for the division, because until Tennessee finds a quarterback and until Anthony Richardson proves he's the real deal, the Colts, neither of those teams have a guy solidified. But let's not forget, Buck, the Tennessee Titans were in the Super Bowl, or nearly in the Super Bowl just a couple of years ago as the number 1 overall seed. I mean, they're right there with Mike Vrabel.
What do you expect to hear on Derrick Henry?
They didn't trade him.
Yeah, that didn't come about, did it?
They didn't trade him.
Not ready to quite get rid of that old war horse yet.
Well, I mean, I think Mike Vrabel still wants Mike Vrabel still wants to be able to hand him the ball and pound the rock. But all right, so that's the AFC South. Cowboys are in the NFC East, which the NFC's wide open, even coming out of this draft. Philadelphia separates a little bit, but man, the problem for the Cowboys is to get to the Super Bowl, you got to get through Philly. You may not have as many teams that you have to deal with in the AFC, but you got to get through that group. And you still haven't been able to beat the 49ers in January.
Yeah, and as you said, in the AFC, how about the Ravens? They got it done by getting Lamar Jackson to not have an agent and get that done.
Yeah, that
put some cash in his pocket.
Big deal. And obviously they drafted Zay Flowers out of Boston College and had their traditional meat and potatoes draft like the Ravens always do.
Yes, they did.
And AFC locked and loaded. And that's where we talked about going into the draft. Who could, in the NFC, come out and say we've made a big stride forward, on the pecking order? I think Detroit fits that bill. I think Seattle, if they followed up last year's draft with all the starters with another group, including Jackson Smith and Jigba and the top corner on the board and Devon Weatherspoon, and all of a sudden they're right back in that. And because of course they played the 49ers in the playoffs this year and battled them for the division. I think the Seahawks have closed the gap a little bit on the 49ers. They're still the favorites, but the Seahawks right there with Arizona and the Rams falling off.
Did Pittsburgh do anything to help out their little hands?
I like the Steelers draft this
Do
weekend.
You?
Yeah, we'll get into that coming up. I mean, they had a typical Steeler. I mean, I love the pick of Joey Porter Jr. at the top of 2 to get Joey Porter's son, a legend in your franchise, with the first pick of the second round out of Penn State, where a lot of people had a first round grade on him, and he ends up with the Steelers. I like what the Steelers did. Now, as far as weapons for Kenny Pickett, I'll look deeper into their draft, but they went. That's the Steelers do, right? They take meat and potatoes kind of guys. Got a great corner with that first pick of the second round. We'll come back, reset these top stories. We'll get you handed off and teed up for the Light the Tower program, which is coming your way at the top. Of course, the rest of the day here on the Horn. Sharp Vision, modern LASIK, folks. It's Sharp Vision. We tell you all the time the numbers are what's important, right? You're starting to break down these draft picks and who's where, and you try to give them grades. Here's the deal with Sharp Vision. These are the numbers that are important. 9 of 10 people, 90% of folks who get in there and get a free eye test and get their eyes checked with the Sharp Vision discover that there is a procedure that can help correct their vision. That's 9 of 10. That's a high number. But the low number is the price, right? They have procedures starting as low as $495 per eye. They also have guaranteed financing to help you fit the bill there. Moving forward, using that FSA rollover money as well. They're the best. And Sharp Vision, another important little ingredient, they've been voted the best of the best by the Austin American-Statesman readers each of the last 3 years in the LASIK eye category. 3 years running, going for a fourth this year, a four-peat, which is important. So you know you're working with the best. You got the great value, and they have a procedure for you. And those procedures are so simple, so why not make that phone call today and set up that free consultation, 512-596-2020. That's 512-596-2020. Or book an appointment online, so easy to do, at sharp-vision.com. That's sharp with an E, -vision.com. It's Sharp Vision Modern LASIK, the official LASIK provider of Austin AC. It's got a nice note from our friend Craig Flowers, who reminds us that Kentucky Derby post-draw today at 2 o'clock, 1 Eastern. So 1 o'clock here. Kurt Godby will be calling in tomorrow. The lead, the head man with the Don't Tell My Wife Stables. He'll be talking all things draw. And my question for Craig Flowers is, did Nunley, when he won the Austin Derby, come out of the 2-hole? Is that the deal?
The old deuce.
Because I think it's a 19-horse field. We had this story over the weekend, Bucker, last week, of the horse that was killed, right? Suffered a traumatic leg injury. He was going to be in this field, and now he's not. So I don't know if it drops back to 19 or.
Now he dead.
Yeah, he's not with us any longer.
No.
Terrible story. Terrible story. But, yes, we look forward to talking to Kurt Godby tomorrow. Also, as we said, we'll get to Jerry Hamilton to get some more on this Ron Holland situation with the Texas Longhorns. I know Jeff Howe will have a lot on that coming up on Light the Tower with Craig, because there's so much to talk about from the weekend involving the Longhorns and baseball and all the 5 Longhorns drafted, 2 signed free agent deals. But, man, that Ron Holland story really was a tough one to hear on Friday for Rodney Terry and the basketball program. But Texas football, 5 players drafted. Congratulations to Bijan Robinson. We gave you the fact of the day in the 6 o'clock hour that Bijan's first Pop Warner team, when he first started playing football at 8 years old, Falcons.
That'll do it.
Full circle. It's like you played for the Vikings. That's why you like the Minnesota Vikings.
Played for they were called the Raiders, but they had Vikings uniforms.
Oh,
it's
so
weird.
you were confused. Cowboys selected DeMarvion Overshown.
Yes. I had a dream.
I had a dream. If you want to go to my Twitter account, at Aaron Hogan, ErinHogan, I retweeted the Lewis Riddick audio talking about how good of a pick he thinks that is, and Dan Quinn's defense. And remember, Lewis was a defensive back himself. And
his best days are yet to come at that position.
And I think the same for Roschon Johnson. We read the quotes from the lead scout on Roschon's recruitment scouting, and said, man, we couldn't believe he was still there in the 4th round. We think he becomes a foundational piece of our team and our locker room. They do have Deontay Foreman there. Who else do the Bears have? They've got the kid Khalil Herbert, who they drafted last year, but Roschon will get in there and compete. And as we know, Roschon will immediately contribute on special teams.
Oh, for sure.
And I think his best days are ahead of him. I think the same for Moro Ojimo, drafted in the 7th round by the Eagles.
He's the one I worry about more than all of them.
What's your biggest concern?
That, the defensive linemen that they already have, they're young.
Yeah.
They got a ton of them.
They do. Jordan Davis and
which
Jalen
means
Carter.
the old dudes are going to be out the door here in 2 years.
Well, Fletcher Cox can't play forever, and they lost Javon Hargrave in free agency to the 49ers. But yeah, I mean the Eagles may have drafted the replacements for their best deep, Brandon Graham and
yes, they have,
and Fletcher Cox with this last 2 drafts.
And they play a lot of guys too on that defensive line, which is good.
Keandre Coburn to the Chiefs, of course, in the 6th round. They need a run plugger, and good luck to Keandre. Anthony Cook, a deal with the Chiefs as well on a free agent basis, and Deshaun Jameson with the 49ers. So no, Craig and Jeff will have more thoughts on that coming up. Also, the Texas baseball team playing at 1 o'clock today. I'm assuming, T.Y., help me with this. Is it just Jeff today because Craig is in TCU, or will he join the show? I don't know how that's going to work because Craig's calling the game with Texas and TCU at 1 o'clock today. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but I know there'll be a Light the Tower coming your way at
Colonel
the top
Parker.
there. And let me mention that Tanner Witt, again, is going to start the game for the Longhorns today. That is must listen. Hey, several people said that the Baltimore Ravens signed Antonio Brown. Now, let's clarify this. Antonio Brown reported on his Instagram over the weekend that he has joined the Baltimore Ravens. And he put a tweet out. The Ravens haven't said anything.
Okay.
And he's not on their roster.
He says a lot of things.
He may want to play for them. Look at it. Look at that tweet. Excited to return to the NFL this year. And he has a Ravens jersey on. I mean, the Ravens and their fans hate Antonio Brown from his days in Pittsburgh, do they not? Like, hate him.
Yeah, what does he do? Have just a bunch of jerseys at his house that he throws on?
I don't know. Well, everybody was texting us saying, no, they got Antonio Brown now. And I'm like, well, I want to let the Ravens know that. They haven't told anybody that. They haven't announced that. Well, we'll see. We'll follow that storyline.
Good grief.
All right. Hey, who wins the basketball tonight, Buck? Your 76ers in Boston tonight.
Game 1, Boston.
T.Y., where are you feeling? Sixers have been resting.
I like the Sixers to cover.
What's the line?
10.
Ooh,
10? Ooh,
10.
That's a big number.
Big old number. Big old juicy number.
I like that, too. And
I like Denver to cover 4.5 tonight, too.
Suns and Nuggets. Nuggets ran the Suns out of the building on Saturday night in Game 1 with Jamal Murray having a huge game. That game at 9 o'clock tonight, Sixers, Celtics.
And let's just make sure we get that
7:30.
Colorado schedule in, Ty. We need to make some money when the season comes because Dion won't shut up. He can't stop.
And he's not going to have a very good team.
No.